To order, and if people could please join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Item 3 is public comment. We have two public meetings to hear statements about two project eligibility applications for comprehensive permits under Chapter 40B. So we are limiting public comment to 15 minutes because these typically take quite a bit of time, and the board also needs to give hearing to these and let people have the time they need for those. Is there anyone who would like to participate or make a public comment? So I see eight hands raised. 13. Oops, it just went away. Let me get that back up. Okay, so again, we'll have 15 minutes, and it's 2 minutes apiece, so I'm not sure that we'll have time to get to everybody this evening, but we have public comment at the next meeting as well. And I think we'll also be moving up public comment response as well, just so that we can keep it all together and keep it tight. So for people who haven't done this before, or just as by way of reminder, I think we lost our slide. Hillary, could we have that back up? Thank you. Thanks. In order to raise your hand, people have done that, but if you're on the phone, press *9 to raise your hand, and you press *6 on your phone to toggle off and on for mute, and you'll be able to unmute yourself once you're called on. So I'll call on people in order that that the hands went up, and there'll be a time clock, I understand, so that people can just plan accordingly. So if you would state your name and your address, that would be very helpful, and we would very much appreciate it. If I pronounce people's names incorrectly, please correct me. I would really appreciate that. So I think the first one is Jamie Mulligan, and if you'd like to state your name and your address, and then tell us what you're here to speak about.
Hi, Melinda. My name is actually Pat Mulligan. I'm signing in on my wife's
Okay.
my wife's computer, but I just wanted to comment on the 40B developments. And I had sent a letter last night, and you very graciously answered me, and I really appreciated that. So I don't know if you want me to comment now or.
Well, yes, I that's fine. I do just want to note that the project eligibility portion of that process we did go through, but so really the next place is the Zoning Board of Appeals. So the comments that you make here won't necessarily get there, but the board does feel that it's important for people to be heard, and again, we really recommend that people go through that process. We're going to be engaging in that process too as a board, and already staff are already and actually committees too and boards are already working on comments to the application. But as I said, we still want to give people some time. And if people aren't able to make a statement tonight, we have another meeting on the 4th of November.
Oh, thank you, Melinda. Look, I'll just very briefly say this, and I'll let you guys have at it. But I just wanted the board to know that, you know, this neighborhood has been only in the last several months become quite engaged. As we really didn't know what was happening regarding these developments, and I think that it's only in the last several, well, recently really, that it became aware, that the majority of the neighborhood became aware of what was happening. And I think we want you folks to know, first of all, we very much appreciate the time and effort that you put into this job. I know it's not easy, and you get a lot of people with, you know, everybody's got their own worries and concerns in life, but this is something that's really going to affect us here in the Robbins, Bose Hill, Hills View, Brush Hill Road area, and it's just something that we're very concerned about, and we're going to be, you know, moving forward, we're going to be working at it, and we just hope that you guys will know that and will work with us. And that's all I really want to say. I think the letter I sent was more specific, but I won't, you know, go through all that tonight because it was a long one, and I know you guys are probably, I know you have a time constraint tonight, but I really want to thank you for all your efforts, and hopefully we can continue forward together on this.
Well, thank you, Mr. Malkin.
Thank you.
And the second person is Mona Abozena. Did I pronounce her name correctly?
Yes, thank you. I want to echo the appreciation for everybody here tonight and for the hard work in general. We live at 621 Blue Hill Avenue, and I wanted to comment specifically on the 40B application for 582 Blue Hill Avenue. As somebody who really shares in a support for having diversity in all ways, including economic diversity, I think it's very important that we have affordable housing in Milton, and that we, you know, over time meet the state guidelines about what percentage. But I am deeply concerned to have the type, in terms of size and scope of project that's being currently proposed at 582 Blue Hill Avenue. You know, just looking around in the neighborhood, something that is about 5 stories high, in terms of thinking about traffic, congestion, quality of life, privacy, just for everybody involved. It seems completely out of character with everything in the area currently. And I'm just concerned about that. I personally wouldn't have a problem if there were something that was, you know, similar to the rest of the neighborhood in terms of size and scope. I don't know if that would meet the developers' goals in the area, but I think, you know, having a project wouldn't be a problem. It's, my concern is the size and the scope.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And the next person is Lori McIntosh. If you could just tell us your address, please.
Hi, thank you, Belinda. I'm Laurie McIntosh at 77 Cushing Road, and I am president of the Cushing Road Neighborhood Association. We are a subset of the larger Brush Hill Road Neighborhood Association. And thank you for responding to our letter, which was sent yesterday. And I won't go over all of the points in the letter, but I do want to add a little more detail to one issue, and that is the safety issue. We are discussing 936 Brush Hill Road, that proposed area, which is practically right at the base of our street. And so we anticipate the traffic going back and forth from that location to anywhere in the Boston Hyde Park area would be going down our street. And so I just did a little digging, and the Federal Highway Administration, a part of the U.S. Department of Transportation, says that the average U.S. household makes 9.5 trips a day. And so to just do the math, we have 20 units that are proposed here times 9.5 trips a day. is 190 trips, but that actually has to be doubled because that's a trip out our street and then back in our street. So that's actually 380 times up and down Cushing Road per day, in addition to the cut-through traffic that we already suffer with. There are 12 school-age children on our street, and so we are extremely concerned about adding an additional 380 car trips up and down our street where there are children playing. Their ages range from infancy to high schoolers, and so children will be on our street for a long time, and this is a very dangerous situation. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Zina, actually two people, Zina and Eamon Agdassi. Don't know if I pronounced your names correctly. If you could tell us also where you're from, please, your address.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, Iman and Zina Agdassi here. I'm going to start, Zina, and if you want to add anything.
Well, we live on.
Yeah, we live on 285 Brush Hill Road, very close to the corner with Moore Road. So we very recently, I'm talking about just in the past few days, heard about the plans for the development at 16 Moore Road. So I want to echo some things that I've heard already. I am deeply concerned about the size of scope of that particular project. From what I understand, it's going to be a lot more new residents in that area. I would say at 16 or more roads, to be specific.
16 units.
It's 16 units, right? That's our understanding. Let me just, without being long-winded about this, the security issue is a big deal for us. On Brush Hill Road, there have been multiple fatalities from what we've understood in terms of car accidents since we moved to Milton in 2015. It would be a great thing if our kids could safely cross Brush Hill Road or even walk alongside Brush Hill Road, but we really don't allow for that. People already come screaming down Brush Hill Road. We will not let our kids walk in the general vicinity of our street. And the town has made some effort to kind of put crosswalks and things like that, but it's not adequate. It's still extremely dangerous there. So the notion of more car traffic is a big, big concern for us in terms of security. The other thing I wanted to mention is the character of where we live is really special to us. It's a very diverse place in terms of race, in terms of income. One thing I always say is on one side of where we live, we got a social worker. On the other side, we got a dermatologist. It's the nature of the neighborhood. But the neighborhood also is a single family neighborhood. And building multi-unit homes in large scale, I am worried about the character of where we live. So I think that, to be honest, that's somewhat secondary to the security issue and the traffic issue from my point of view, but I wanted to bring that up as well. Zina, did I miss anything? Okay. I'm not as plugged in perhaps as many of the people on this call. I really want to work hard to be able to be appraised to this. So I'm glad I dialed in, and whatever information you can provide, in addition to, you mentioned that the November 4th meeting, I would really appreciate it. Okay,
and feel free, please, to send an email our way, and we can make sure that you have all the information from the website and everything. My email is mcollins@townofmilton.org, but you can find us on the website as well, and we can get you that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to point out one thing. So people who are here, and I'm happy to have people speak about 936 Brush Hill and 16 Amore, but we're actually getting to those a little later. So right now we're just in sort of the general public comment mode. Not that people can't bring their comments up there, but if you'd like to wait until those portions, that then everyone can hear each other's comments for those particular projects. So that being said, if you are here for 16 Amor or 936, and you can wait until we get down a little farther, we have a couple of other agenda items that would be helpful. You can lower your hand. If you can't wait, then or you're here to talk about some other topic, then please leave your hand up. Okay, thank you. So our next speaker is Joanne Fu. If you could tell us your address, please. I think you're unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So my address is 56 Meeting House Lane. Basically, my house is right next to that big project proposed on the Blue Hills.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 years ago, we moved in Milton, and we love the street. I love the house location because it's the end of the road, and the neighborhood is so quiet, so nice, so safe. And now all of a sudden with this big project, right next to our house. So we're seriously, concerned, and we send you a letter. We don't know, like it's a five-story building, and with a lot of people, with everyday noise and lighting, and I just don't know how we can, I don't know, like I cannot imagine, how can we have such a big, building just next to our nice, single family house neighborhood. So our street is really, we lived here 3 years. We love the neighborhood. We know it's a small street. We know everybody. We feel so safe. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, we have this huge, big building with lots of people. We don't know, the safety issue. I mean, so we're seriously concerned. And we send you letters, and right now, we're just, very concerned. In terms of like, safety, noise and lighting, and also the other things like the water pollution. We don't know, because, we have a nice, quiet environment, a nice street. All of a sudden with so many people, I don't know also the water pollution. So has anybody looked into that? What because that's not my specialty. So all these concerns, I don't know how we can address that. And, okay, we understand why, we have such a proposal. We understand we're trying to solve some problem, but at the same time, like the rest of us, it's seriously, it's really, impacted by this project. And who is going to, like, how can we address our concern?
Mm-hmm.
I think, that's why I wanted to bring this concern to this meeting, and thank you for the time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. So our next speaker is, it says right at 137 Robbins. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you,
Good evening.
Melinda and the select board. I want to echo what a lot of people have said. We appreciate all the support you've given. I read the letters written both by the planning board and you in response to the 582 Blue Hill Ave project. I'm sure you have similar comments and concerns with the other 40Bs that seem to have been starting to hammer our town. I also want to talk about the safety risk, and I do want to echo what Lori had mentioned earlier in regard to the project on Amor. Again, I'm talking about 582 Blue Hill Ave. You know, I really feel this is a safety risk to the residents in our area regarding walking and biking. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the Walk Score website. This is a website that provides information on the walkability, bikeability, and the ability to utilize public transit. The development site at 582 Blue Hill Ave logs in at an 11 out of 100 in its Walk Score based on the pedestrian friendliness. It's noted as being fully car dependent. For transit, it ranks at 25 out of 100, noting there will be minimal transit options. I looked at this a little bit. The best option for those who would be dependent on public transit would be to walk or actually probably run across the state highway road where the speed limit's 50 miles an hour. Then they have to walk up a fairly significant hill to get to Brush Hill Road, continue to incline up to Metropolitan Ave. Waze says it's a 28-minute walk, and that would be just to catch a bus to connect to other modes of transit. So it's really not too friendly for those without cars. If you look at the driving options, driving to Boston is a 55-minute trip, which is not terrible. I don't think that's bad at all. If you view the that's during rush hour. If you view the suggested route, this is where my concern comes in, being a resident on Robin Street, and really for the whole neighborhood. The suggested routes from MapQuest, Waze, and Google Maps all send you directly down Robin Street onto Canton Ave and through the congestion near the high school in the morning. Robin Street has no sidewalks. It's a racetrack ever since it was paved 2 or 3 years ago, and it's going to be very dangerous for both the pedestrians and those who choose to bike. So it's just not suitable location for this size project. I read the traffic study that was submitted by the developer this summer, and that study did not measure the volume on Robin Street at all, which I think is a huge mistake, and I'd call for that study to be done. The study essentially said that, and I'm not sure exactly how the math was done, but this goes back to what Lori was saying earlier. It says there will only be 42 trips from this site during peak weekday hours. That's 42 trips in a proposal of 118 units and 200 residents. So I don't know why they say 42, but my best guess is that they think people are going to walk or they're going to take public transit. And as I just mentioned, none of those are really great options. I feel like it's an absurd attempt to pull the wool over our eyes. The study also assumes that the most impacted intersection will be Blue Hill Ave at Brook Road, which is 2.6 miles away. They chose to do that traffic study of Brook Road and Blue Hill Ave, an intersection 2.6 miles away, but not a study for the Robin Street intersection, which is 1/10 of a mile away. Again, the path that Google Maps, Waze, and MapQuest all say is the best direction to go. I think that as we talk about traffic studies, and we hope that we can get traffic studies, it is very important to consider the study of this site in conjunction with what's going on with Brush Hill Road, the Amor project, and any other projects. If you add all those together, it's just going to be a traffic nightmare for many neighborhoods. And with all that traffic, I just, again, would echo what everyone else has said. I feel like there's a real safety issue. Someone's literally going to die on Robin Street if this goes through, unless the town's prepared to make some material changes on their end to put in sidewalks, put in bike lanes, and figure out other solutions. So I'll leave it at that. I think that someone needs to take a much deeper look at the traffic study and really call out where they're completely wrong in that study.
Thank you. Okay, just looking at the time to make sure we're on time. The next person is Robert Lavash, and if you could tell us your address and correct me if I pronounced your name wrong, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how are you? Thank you. Yeah, my wife and I, we live at 585 Brush Hill Road. We actually just moved here from East Milton. We have two little girls, a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, who we moved to this neighborhood because we used to live on Granite Avenue, and we moved here for the sole reason because of the neighborhood. And we'll echo with what everyone has said already. Is our main concern is for their safety, and I think these developments are a real issue for us. Because we feel the safety is a huge proponent to this. So I think and the second proponent of this too is just the overall size of the development on Blue Hill Ave as well, for the neighborhood and the traffic on Blue Hill Ave. It's just to us it's the biggest development in the town. So it's a huge safety issue for us.
Also, I mean, the schools are already overcrowded. We can't even send kids back to school fully right now because of the size of classrooms, minus COVID. So on top of that, you're going to really hinder our schools, and we can't even afford a new building right now. So what is the town going to do about that? Pay the developers, or have the developers pay for this? I mean, I just don't get how that's going to happen either.
Yeah, I mean, if you look in the proximity in this neighborhood, you have 4 of these developments going in, and to me, it's a huge zoning issue, and just the lack of town planning overall. Just the 40B development, just to even let it skirt in is a huge piece to this. And 4 of these are all within close proximity of each other. But the Blue Hill Ave one is really the one that I'm concerned about because of the scale of it, and the fact that it's also taking out a historic house and project there. And gardens. And so it's just, that one's a tragedy to me because that one is the one that really focus on safety. And so, that's it. I think that's our concern.
Thank you. And the next person is Steve Shapiro. If you could please tell us your address.
Yes, hi, I'm Steve Shapiro from 184 Robbins Street. And I'm speaking about the development that's in my neighborhood at 582 Blue Hill Ave. I want to thank the Selectmen Committee. I really appreciate the letter I saw from Selectman Zulus earlier in the year to Mass Housing that pointed out the inaccuracies in the initial developer application. Having worked in commercial real estate earlier in my career, certainly was able to differentiate between developers who were well-meaning for community and those that weren't. And one of the red flags is always the way you initially fill out an application. So obviously one of my concerns when I saw this, and I saw that you as a select board responded to it, and I really appreciate the fact that you pointed out something, but as someone who lives 100 yards from the proposed development, I just want to echo what a few other people said. Probably the most dangerous part of my day is when I try to cross Blue Hill Ave from one side of Robbins to the other as a pedestrian. The second is when I bike, and I do bike daily past that site, cars are going 70 miles an hour. But going back to the application, where the developer said that this is a pedestrian-friendly area, that it's walking distance to schools. Just a reminder, Delphi Academy is a private school that people who are qualified for affordable housing probably also can't go to private school. It is not walking distance to any Milton public school. The developer said that there was good mass transit. There's like an almost unmarked van that goes like once a day down Blue Hill. So, I mean, and the bullet points go on and on of basically this was a very disingenuous attempt to try to turn this location into something that it just clearly isn't. In our neighborhood, a lot of us have met, and everyone in our neighborhood is pro affordable housing, and Milton coming up with a good solution around our 40B dilemma at the moment. I realize we're not at 10% and we need to get to 10%. But this particular location, this particular developer, it just doesn't seem right, fair, equitable, or anything. So yeah, I'm here in the neighborhood and those are my sentiments. And I come at it partially from a professional level of having been in commercial real estate and dealt with a lot of developers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shapiro. I have to say, I regret that we're actually a little past 15 minutes. So I ask people who are here to perhaps come to the next meeting or send us an email, give me a call. I'm happy to speak with anyone. At this point, I'm going to move up public comment response because I think we need some explanation about this particular 582 Blue Hill Ave. So the 40B comprehensive permit process, that law is designed to circumvent, to go around, neutralize, if you will, local zoning. So we don't have a choice but to actually go through the prescribed process that the state allows. And that means that a subsidizing agency receives an application from somebody who wants to do a comprehensive permit project. And they ask if this site is eligible for the housing that they want to put on it. And it's not usually a very well fleshed out, as you all have been telling us, and we also noted in our response. They're not generally full applications. It's basically the concept and some financing in very broad brushstrokes. And then the subsidizing agent, in this case, it's all been mass housing, grants the eligibility, and that's what allows the developer to then go on and apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals. That's it's basically a quasi-adjudicatory board. It's separate from, say, the town staff. It's down, but it has resources, obviously, from the town. But it's a separate process. They're an independent board, and the process goes through them. So now, 582, that's where we're all heading. Your comments, I noted the traffic study. Those studies will be peer reviewed. I think the same things that were mentioned have already been noted, but residents should absolutely contact the Zoning Board of Appeals with their comments. Actually, we've been sending them on, but I think you should do it yourselves, and you'll have ample opportunity to engage in that process. And they're a great board. They really want to listen to people. And as far as things like water pollution or any of those things, the Zoning Board of Appeals also has access to state resources to have extra studies done or to have extra consulting. And our town departments, boards, and committees are also working, now that the full applications are out, are working to analyze those and make comments, and will continue to make comments as those hearings actually get opened. They haven't been scheduled yet, and move forward. So at this time, I also would like to ask any other board members if they would like to provide a couple public comment response. I think Hillary can take the slide down. So did I see someone raise a hand?
I did, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I can't see all of you. That's why I was hoping they,
So I believe I think your comments pretty much summed up where we are in this. As you know, in the past 3 to 4 years, we've had, numerous projects from the Randolph Ave project to East Milton, and now these 4 projects that we've discussed tonight. The fact that, as you noted, we are not at the 10%, and the fact that there is developers have a great deal of leeway in their ability to file these, buy these properties and file these proposals and develop them to a scale that is really, really tough to fight. And it's, as all of us know on this board, I don't think we've spent any more time on things. And it's not that, I hear the comments that have been echoed tonight, like residents who say I'm not against affordable. To be honest with you, when I had this discussion with someone in town today, I beg some developer to come into this town with a reasonable 6-unit, 7-unit, 8, in something that's reasonable instead of these massive structures that they've been dropping in neighborhoods where they absolutely have zero business being. And I hear their frustration, but to all of them that are out there, I think they know how hard we're working on this, and you are correct. The ZBA on those projects, other than except Brush Hill Road and Amor, ZBA is the next place to start voicing your concern, because as we know, site plan approval has already been granted for both Canton Ave and Bull Ave. That's where they want to, everything that they have said to us tonight, they want to articulate to that ZBA sooner versus later. So those are my comments on this. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Wells. And Mr. Doyle, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to join you in thanking all of the people who have written and who turned out tonight, whether they had an opportunity to provide comments or not. We understand the situation, and we very much, as the chair said, appreciate hearing from you and want to hear from you.
Thank you. Ms. Conlon?
Madam Chair, I think you stated it very well in terms of what the process is. I just wanted to point out, rather than people emailing the Zoning Board of Appeals now, they may want to wait until the public hearing is actually opened. I think that's probably, I suppose the Board of Appeals could just keep the comments and save them, but when they open the public hearing, that's when they're going to have a process that's in place and deadlines, and I think the comments probably should be addressed at that time to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But I would echo Arthur in thanking everyone for their comments tonight, and to the many people who also, perhaps some of the same people who came in last winter and spring when we were going through the 582 Blue Hill Avenue comment letter. It may have been other neighbors. I'm not sure how much crossover there was. It sounds like one of the commenters said that they were not aware of this happening. So there may be some new neighbors who are coming forward now, but hopefully they will read our letter to Mass Housing and look at the issues that were highlighted, and then raise these points to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Ms. Conlon. Mr. Zulus?
Just one question and clarification, maybe for all the people with an interest in this. Is it the case now that the Zoning Board of Appeals has not scheduled those hearings pending the resumption of in-person hearings? And if that's the case, then obviously they won't, I guess we don't have anything anytime soon, but is that still the case, your understanding? That was mine previously.
Yes, so at the moment that's the case. So until the Zoning Board of Appeals can really meet face to face, their intention is to wait. The Supreme Judicial Court isn't holding hearings face to face, but for these very, very complex matters where they feel the public especially would benefit from being there in person, because you're looking at plans and things like that. That's been their desire. That does not mean that it won't change. The governor could change the executive order, or it's possible that there could be some technological answer to their concerns, but they've been very thoughtful about this. And I guess my concern is how to make sure that people know about things. And the good thing about neighborhood associations now being so active is that my hope is that won't happen again. Because we did have people from these neighborhoods come, but it didn't spread, and hopefully it will now. And yes, Mr. Zulus.
So just I think it's important for the residents to know that it's the position of our zoning board of appeals, the Milton zoning board of appeals, that in-person hearings are important. So all the residents can express their views in person, and that's their position now. And so let's see if they're allowed to continue in that position.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you very much for everyone who's attended and who is waiting patiently for their agenda item to come up. We have 100 attendees, so I think that's the most we've had in quite a while, and so I do appreciate it. And I really appreciate also our health director and our board of health members, and also Ms. Thermidor, who's up next, for being so patient and joining us this evening. So we're on to item 4, our COVID-19 update, and we have our Director of Public Health, Caroline Kinsella, with us, and also the Chair of the Board of Health, Laura Richards, and another member of our Board of Health, Roxanne Musto. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. I think first we're going to have a discussion about the status of COVID-19 in Milton and the implications. I'll open it up.
Thank you, Chair Collins and Select Board members. Thanks for having me and the board here at your meeting. I just want to give you an update of what's going on in Milton right now as compared to what happened in the spring. So in the spring, when we had an increase of cases, we were seeing more of the cases in the long-term care facilities and older people. But now that's shifted, and we're seeing more younger people, like 16 to 39, the state is seeing getting infected with COVID-19. So what I'm seeing in Milton is over the summer, we had 0 to 2 cases, like in July and August and the beginning of September. And then as the schools opened up and the kids went back to school, the cases started slowly rising. And I expected that to happen, more kids are getting together in the classrooms. And so we saw a bit of an increase in higher education and an increase in our schools. So we went from 0 to 2 to the last 2 weeks, we went up to 3.86, which was our daily average. And it doesn't take a lot to get Milton in the red zone. And what the red zone means, and now there's a calculation on the health department website, the red zone means that we've exceeded 2.29 cases daily in the health department. So we have become busier the past couple of weeks. And if on a daily basis, if we have more than 2.29 cases, we're going to go into the red zone. And so the last 2 weeks, as I said, it was 3.86, and that bumped us in the red zone. And where we're seeing that coming from is the younger adults, younger college kids, and as I said, higher education, and in the schools too. So we've seen a little bit from, I think, almost all the schools, whether it's a teacher who has got COVID-19 or a student. And what happens then if we have, like say, a student that is infected with COVID-19, we have to identify all the close contacts. So that could be the whole classroom. For instance, if it's the first grade, the whole classroom will go into quarantine for 14 days. So it affects a lot of people, impacts a lot of people in our community. So that's what's happened now. We've gone into the red zone, and this is last week we were in the red zone, and I'm expecting that tonight and tomorrow morning the numbers will be posted. I checked before I got on that we'll be going into the red, we'll stay in the red zone again this week, because our numbers have decreased a little bit. When I went on this morning, we had 45 cases as opposed to 54 in the last week. Like it's a 2-week count. So it went down from 54 to 45, and So that has decreased, but still that is indicating the red zone. And that 45 is a fluid number, so it might be a little bit up or down. But we are still in the red zone, and we should be vigilant, social distancing, wearing masks when we cannot social distance. And I did reach out to the North Andover Health Department because Merrimack College also had a number of cases there in North Andover, and it pushed them into the red zone. And when we're seeing higher education, we have Curry College. A couple of their cases have also, if they're residential students, those numbers are in our counts. So with the other residents of Milton becoming sick with COVID-19, it's pushing us into the red zone. And they had written a letter to Governor Baker suggesting that, or hoping that, they wouldn't be penalized that they were going into the red zone, because if we are in the red zone for 3 weeks in a row, what happens is we go back, we're in phase 3, step 2 right now, and we step back to phase 3, step 1, and that's going to impact our business community. And they'll have to roll back a little bit. Instead of like a 50% people going into Fitness Unlimited, it'll be brought back to 40%. People sitting at tables in the restaurants, if there's 10 people at a table, it'd be brought back to 6 people sitting at a table. So there's a bit of a rollback if we're stepping back one step, and that's going to impact the businesses in Milton. So I expect that we're going to go in the red zone. We're going to be staying in the red zone for this week, coming week. But as schools have been opening, we have seen an increase of cases, and we may just continue to see the red zone until Curry goes off to Thanksgiving, and they're going to be out till February. Or so we're watching those numbers very carefully, but it is impacting almost all of our schools that we're seeing a case here and a case there. And just one case can, as I said, the number is so, it's a low threshold. If we're more than 2.2 cases per day, then that's bringing us up into the red zone. So thank you very much. If anyone has any questions.
Oh, Mr. Dennehy?
I think it's worth noting that Caroline has been following, and her group has been following these numbers very, very closely. That report, that weekly 2-week look back, usually comes out on Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. We were notified that report won't be due until tomorrow. So just for edification, that report, which normally comes out prior to this board meeting, the state has decided to release that on Thursdays going forward.
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Caroline. Welcome back. We'll miss you. You haven't been here for a while. It's almost like we gave you July and August off.
I know. Yeah, you're right.
So just 2 points. And I've been following this pretty close as well. We're okay on ICU beds. Like we're not, the BI Milton isn't getting, and have we had any additional fatalities in the past month?
So good question, Richard. I talked to Missy, infection control at BID Hospital today, and she said that there is 1 person in the ICU and 2 people that are in the hospital. So 3 total up at the hospital. And I know in the beginning of the pandemic, we were worried about flattening the curve and making sure that there was enough beds. And so she's seen 3. And those are not, the one in the ICU is not a Milton resident. I'm not sure about the other 2, but yeah, so there's 3 people up there right now. And tell me again your second question.
No, we've had no recent fatalities from COVID in the past month.
So I don't know about the last month, but the number, we checked it this week, is 26 that have passed away since March 1st. And the ages are 62 and above. I can't tell you that.
Many thanks. Keep it up. Let's hope it gets better.
Yeah.
Are there other questions from members or comments? No. So, Caroline, I don't know if, I think you were talking about Curry and the numbers there, and I understand that you had a call with Curry, and the State Department of Public Health, and I just thought that the other members may be interested in hearing about that. I thought it was it sounded very productive.
It was very productive. Yes, we had a call with the state, Curry College, and my nurse Sue, because we're following the cases, residential cases up at Curry College, just to understand what their plans are, where they're looking every day at all the cases and seeing where those students are residing in the college and making decisions if they needed to close a dorm and send the kids home for 2 weeks. But they're watching very carefully up at Curry. They have a good plan in place, and we were talking with the state. I'm glad we had them get involved, because we're all on the same page now on who's going to be contacting the students, the expectations that have been set, and as I said, watching carefully with Curry College.
Thank you.
They do have a good plan. They are testing their kids every week. So, they could go 9 weeks, and then the 10th week, there could be a positive, and then they try to find out, that we identify all the close contacts, try to find out, where that student might have been exposed, possibly closing a dorm. But they have been very responsive, and they are closely watching their students at Bakari.
Thank you. So, I also wanted to follow up with a question on North Andover's letter. I don't know if you think that's something that is also applicable to Milton. We don't have a regular or sort of a typical college town where the college is right there and we're mingling a lot with businesses and things. So I didn't know what your perspective was on that.
Yeah, I like to craft a letter. I think it's important for Milton to craft it, because not all towns have a college, and those numbers are affecting our town. And I can craft that letter with your input, and hopefully send that to Governor Baker, because I think he needs to know that, that Milton is being impacted by higher education numbers, and some towns don't have that in their town. And 3 reds mean we have to go step back 1 step, and that's going to impact our business community.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Zulus?
Caroline, thank you for all your continued work on this. What about Milton Academy? Have we had the contact with them? Are there any issues with Milton Academy, or are they contributing to the cases? That's in some ways a college campus right within our community. So is there any update on Milton Academy?
Yeah, they had their lower grades go back to school hybrid model. I think it's 1st through 8th, but the older students for the campus have not returned to campus. I don't know what their decisions are. We've had very few cases from there, but we are following closely, and we are in contact with Milton Academy. Yeah.
Great. The other thing I wanted to know was that you have at least a draft of a press release, and I wanted to thank you for that. I don't know if all the members of the board had a chance to see it. I don't know if it went out to everyone, but just to help people navigate what the red zone means, and so that also guidance about wearing masks, practicing good hygiene, social distancing, self-monitoring, and so I appreciate that you're putting this back in front of people, and you also highlight that now we've shifted from sort of the older, really vulnerable population into the 16 to 39 demographic as sort of where a good deal of the cases are coming from. So, I think we look forward to seeing that come out, and appreciate that. Does anyone have any other questions or concerns?
See, the numbers are out for today, Madam Chair, and they're consistent. There's 646 new cases today. We're still at a 1.3 positive test rate, which has been, as Caroline knows, we've been covering there. But
Right.
Karen, are you all set for? I'm sure Mr. Denner, he would let us know if are you all PPE stuff like that? Yeah.
We're good.
Workforce, anything we can do?
We're good. Can I give a plug for our flu clinic? We have our seasonal flu clinic tomorrow. It's at the Council of Aging, 3 to 7. And the first hours for seniors preference. So 3 to 7 tomorrow, Council of Aging. Bring your insurance cards. We're expecting a good crowd. We'll be social distancing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also wanted to invite, our Board of Health, if you would like to make any statements or ask questions or have anything that you'd like our board to address, we're happy to hear whatever it is that you have to say. And I'm so sorry, I didn't see that Dr. Campagnone had joined us. I want to also say thank you to you. I can't imagine what kind of a busy time that you've been having, and here you came to join us in our meeting, and we would be happy to hear any questions that you have or anything that you would like to share with us. And Ms. Jensen's here now too, so my apologies for sort of just catching up to that fact.
My apologies for being tardy.
Oh no, please.
Meetings all day. I apologize.
No, of course. And we have a lot of people on the call, so I thought you may get lost as well. So I was a little concerned.
So I would just say in point of fact that, I represent only a small percentage of the pediatric population in Milton and Hyde Park. My main office is in Hyde Park, but we have a branch office in the Milton Hospital. I would say by and large, our practice has not experienced a huge number of patients with COVID. Lots of fear, lots of concern about the potential for exposure. But I would say not many, and certainly no one that's been very, very ill. We've had a few, but again, not many. I have to say the age range has been all the way from infancy all the way through late teens. That being said, we haven't had anybody who was so significantly ill that they required hospitalization, which we're grateful for. We, see the need for more testing, more contact tracing. I would say that, it's still very challenging to have testing done in a timely manner. And that's mostly related to the fact that the turnaround time for most of the testing, the PCR test is the gold standard. There are some places that are actually offering the antigen test that turns around like a rapid flu test in about 15 minutes. That's not the gold standard. That's about 40% incorrect. So we always say if that's positive, then we get confirmation by a PCR. That test, is sort of improved in terms of the turnaround time, depending on where the test goes, whether it's to the Quest lab, which is the case in most places, versus the Department of Public Health. That turnaround time is longer. We get families that are frustrated by the wait time that they have to get a result. And I say the phrase, it is what it is. We have no control once the test is done, how long it's going to take to turn around. We work our nursing staff like dogs, I hate to say it, to find families the most convenient testing facility. We've been very bullish on the Stop the Spread sites, which in our neck of the woods are in Randolph and in Brockton. Those facilities do a PCR test. The turnaround time is reasonably good, usually about 48 hours, sometimes even shorter than that. And it's completely free. You don't have to be symptomatic to go there. You can just say, had a potential exposure, would like to have my child tested. Off you go. There's no charge. And that's sort of the end of the story. But, there are numerous locations. Right now, Milton Hospital isn't testing patients under, I think, the age of 15. I'm not sure Caroline might know that better than I, but we don't have access to Milton Hospital testing for the most part. Older kids can go there. We're sending a bunch of kids to a drive-through location at Children's Hospital. That turnaround time is pretty good. But again, they have to be symptomatic, and you kind of sort of have to have an in we're part of the, preferred provider organization of children, so we can send our families there if we need to. But Dedham PM Pediatrics has been great. Some of the other local walk-in clinics have been excellent. Those obviously incur a charge for a visit, which then will get you the test and then obviously charges for the testing. But by and large, it's been a bit of a flog to get timely testing done. And I think that that's probably much more of a national problem than it is just a local one for us. And shout out to Caroline for doing an absolutely remarkable job with all of this. She's been totally steady hand on the tiller there. So high marks for her.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I very much appreciate that. Well, if there are no other comments or questions, I know we also talked about things that actions to be taken. We have Caroline has drafted a press release and also is going to be working on a letter that that we can also help have input into the governor. So those are some things. We've also I've been talking about a PSA with Mr. Dennehy that has community, really the community featured, like the Chamber of Commerce and, as Mr. Dennehy said, youth sports leagues. So, and of course, our health department. So that we're looking at how to put something together that's really meaningful for the moment that we're in and can help us maybe encourage people and get numbers down. So, and I know that we've had other things that we've entertained, and would other people like to add? Oh, Mr. Zulus.
So for our board, we have a draft of a proclamation to promote masks, the use of masks in the business districts in East Milton, Milton Village, and it's fashioned for the select board as a proclamation. It is similar to what the select board voted back in August in terms of trying to promote the use of masks in the business areas. So that is something that we have before us to consider. And this is something that town council has reviewed and signed off on for this board to do. So that's something that we can consider.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Wells.
So I'm very much in lockstep with Caroline and the Board of Health's position on this. I've thought about this a lot. I listened to a good analogy today. I don't know whether it's Winchester or Wells, I can't remember which one has a quote, quote unquote, who's the COVID police, going to go out and enforce. One community had hired ambassadors. I can't remember which one it was. But the second thing that I heard today is about a term that first time I've heard it was the last week, and this is the second time I heard it. And as soon as I heard it today, I started to think about it. Called COVID fatigue. The term COVID fatigue, I see Caroline's head move right away. It's for those who are engaged in it every day. I mean, we're in our meetings, we're overseas, but we're not operational. And for the first responders, the health people, medical staff, teachers that are now in the classrooms, they've been fighting this now for, what are we, month 8, Caroline? Month 9 months of this. I get Mr. Zulus's point, but I think that we're pretty much getting the word out there. I don't hear, Caroline, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, I don't hear a lot of complaints in this town about people not wearing masks. Particularly in the square, I'm always visiting from Milton Marketplace to Navarra Abbey, all of them, that people seem very much compliant with it. I watched them stand out at the line. Starbucks does not allow anyone inside. They run differently than Dunkin' Donuts does. You have to stand out on the sidewalk. People are very good for it. So I'm more inclined. I would support it if we have to, but I really want to see if Caroline's happy with the way things are going. I'm inclined to
Yeah,
stand with her on this.
I agree, Richard. I think Milton, for the most part, is doing an excellent job. I think that people are aware that if they cannot social distance, they are wearing the mask. And that message has been out there since the beginning. And unlike other states where some of them are not adhering to that, I believe that Milton is really stepping up and they are wearing the masks. Yeah, I think they're doing a great job. And I think that's why the cases are so low. And even I was so surprised over the summer it was 0 to 2. I'm still surprised at the 3.86 daily average. I'm surprised.
I walked Turner's Pond last Sunday, and if people don't walk Turner's, they probably don't realize it's way busier than say Houghton's is. It's actually even on a weekend busier than sometimes the bike path is. I must have watched 50 people walk that pond. Not one person didn't have a mask on. Families, all of them. So that says, the mindset is sitting. I mean, Dr. Fauci reiterated it again today. I guess the best way I can sum it up now is I actually have dreams sometimes, and people have masks on the dreams. So that's how much it's become indoctrinated into our world. So if I thought, to Michael's point, if we needed this proclamation issued now, I would be the first to argue. But I think, Caroline, people have really adjusted it to it very well here in town. They have. So that's a good thing. Credit to everybody on that.
I agree.
Would other members have questions or comments?
I was just going to add that if there's anything that we have to understand as the cold weather comes upon us, that we have to have increased vigilance, not decreased. And I totally get the whole business of COVID fatigue. We're all up to our necks with it. But as people go indoors more, that's where the virus is going to be spreading more. So that when they come out, if they're not super careful, depending on where they've been and to whom they've been exposed, then that puts the ordinary citizen who's doing his part to stay safe at risk. So if there were a message I would say we have to do, we increase vigilance. The threat has not passed. And cold weather is certainly going to bring not just more COVID, but likely more influenza and other typical wintertime respiratory illnesses that will not be able to be distinguished from COVID.
Just one further point. So, Madam, term I heard today to describe that what was referred to, they called it the magic of outside is about to go away. And what their reference was that the magic of us being outside and outside dining and outside being in your yard and your porch and distancing and being outside as it gets colder each week as we progress towards winter, that magic is going to dissipate. And the doctor's point, and as you know, Caroline, the going inside and the congregating inside is where the risk is really gonna, and the vigilance, as the doctor talked about, is really gonna become so much more important to get us through this winter.
Right. So, I have a follow-up question for Dr. Campagnone then, because I've been wanting to try to help people prevent getting infected and to really make them feel like they encourage them that we can do this and that we can be extra vigilant. And so what can we do that that will really make a difference, since we're going to be going indoors? And if it's not just to try to help people promote mask wearing in business districts outside, then what is there something that we could do? Or is there some message that we should be delivering, or should we? I don't want to say deliver messaging more often, because it sounds as if people are tired. So it's a bit of a conundrum.
Yeah, I don't know. You could get awfully cute about it. You could make up all kinds of slogans. and so forth. But, what I like to use to my families is the analogy that the mask is a two-way street. It's not just what you're protecting yourself from, it's you're protecting other individuals from your own germs. And so it is a gift that you're giving yourself, but it's also a gift that you're giving your neighbor, your friend, your family member. And, I think if you see it in that way, in this season, upcoming season of gift giving, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and so forth, where we are all going to be hunkered down, probably with fewer people, but who knows? If you're not really careful, it can be a tragic mistake. I had a conversation with an elderly family, not from Milton, but from my hometown, Milford. Family wedding, 18 people. They were not careful. 2 people who came from Connecticut infected 7 out of 18 people at the wedding, just from, it's wedding day. Everybody looks so pretty in their clothes. And, you take the masks off and go down an elevator with somebody. End of story. 7 out of 18 people. That's how easily it spread. So the mask is critical. And I think going indoors, the second thing is hand washing. Coming in and out, you get a little bit of a leaky nose when you're in the cold weather. If you don't use Kleenex and you don't clean your hands, it can be vector for all kinds of spread. And so I think if I said it once, I'll say it again. Two-way street for the mask, but also the mask is now protecting you not just from COVID, but from all of these other things that we expect to see that cause nasal congestion, runny noses, coughs, fevers, etc. So it's multiply protective. The mask is not just for COVID, but it's for all those other things that we expect to see in usual numbers this coming fall and winter.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Yes, Ms. Conlon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Caroline and the Board of Health for all of your efforts on the issue. I'm happy to support Mr. Zulos's proclamation I think it would further the objectives that we've been talking about tonight. And it's geared towards, as I'm reading it, it's geared towards pedestrians. So I think it's outdoors rather than indoors, but that, if there's, I think it would apply equally. So I'd be happy to support the proclamation as something that would hopefully further the efforts of the Board of Health and the Health Director and the entire Health Department, entire department is working yeoman's hours and has been since the spring. So again, thank you for all of your efforts.
Yes, and I would say I support this if we especially have this messaging around it that Dr. Campagnoni has talked about. I think that that's really what will make the difference. It's the messaging, and so even if I have to put signs up myself, I'm happy to do that because people are really worth it. Everybody in town is worth the effort to take good care of each other, as far as I'm concerned. And so I agree. Yes, Mr. Zulus.
So I'll make a motion to issue the proclamation to promote mask zones as written in the proclamation for pedestrians in our business districts in East Milton and in Milton Village.
I'll second the motion.
Any more discussion?
Can
Mr.
we-
Doyle? You're muted, Mr. Doyle.
My family loves to have me muted. Now that we have a second, we are open for discussion. Are we, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have 2 questions, please. Michael, on the second page, first paragraph, toward the end, business hours. Do you have a definition for business hours?
So the proclamation includes the hours 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Those are the hours that are listed.
As cited in the following paragraph, so maybe we want to put it in both places to avoid any ambiguity.
I see what you're saying. So clarify the business hours in the whereas clause?
Right.
Okay.
And are we likely to be getting questions about the parenthesized section reading except for those with a medical condition? How broad or narrow a definition? People are going to say, what does that mean? Do we have anything that would help with that question that's going to come? Maybe Caroline or
Dr. Campagnoni.
that the doctor can help.
Well, I mean, I think it's very clear that older people, elderly in particular, are at greatest risk. I think we know very clearly that anybody with any kind of chronic respiratory condition such as asthma, COPD, other lung conditions are at much greater risk for suffering dire consequences from acquiring COVID. Diabetes is a big one. People can get sick very easily if they're diabetic and their metabolism goes out of whack as a result of any infection. Obesity is a huge factor. There's no delicate way of using that term, but it's very true that people who are overweight or obese are at huge risk for suffering significant consequences from that. In the pediatric population, sickle cell disease is one area that we worry about because of those children's capacity to carry oxygen. I would say those are the major conditions. Obviously, anybody with any kind of chronic condition that requires medication.
That was an excellent word, and I was wondering whether what you were explaining might be encapsulated in that term so that it might read, except for those with a chronic medical condition. Would that do it? It might not answer the whole thing for everybody, but it gives a little better sense of definition.
I think absolutely it's broad, and people can choose to exclude themselves from any category if they want to do that. But I think that would that captures a lot of it. Sure.
Michael, would you be amenable to that?
Certainly.
Can I just ask a question, Mr. Zulus? Is this proclamation from the select board?
Yes. This is the select board.
Okay.
That's right.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wells.
So I just leave with this, and I understand the well intention of my colleagues, but I'm a chain of command person who spent his life in many hazards and many critical situations. And Caroline's the incident commander on this. This is a public health.
Yeah.
This is a public health crisis.
So
they are the lead in this, and
I know. You know what? I know I had spoken to you, Mr. Zulus, this morning, and the board had discussed this 3 times before, and there was some questions, the board and Dr. Campagnoni, around the promotion of the mask in the business zone. I know we had discussed before that people should know that they should put on masks if they're within 6 feet, that the language was redundant. It might confuse people. We've never gotten any complaints. Actually, we got one complaint all this time about one person not wearing a mask, but there has been no complaints from citizens calling to say specifically in the commercial zone that people are not wearing masks. People are wearing masks when they're going into businesses. And this would pertain to if I was at Abbey Park and walking down to Mr. Chan's and I didn't have a mask, then I would be in the wrong if I didn't have a mask, if I'm just walking along, even if there is nobody around me. And also the difficulty about enforcing this, and who is going to enforce this, and who's going to be there patrolling We did ask Abbey Park and Coffee Break Cafe to put more signage in that area. The Board of Health asked them, and they have put more signage in that area. So it is confusing. It is redundant. The board felt to put this proclamation in specifically for the business zones. And we have not had any complaints. And I'm surprised that you brought it up because the board was not in support because there is no enforcement action. It is redundant. And they felt that at this time, people, we should be just concentrating on people should be wearing masks if they cannot distance the 6 feet. And we just thought it would be too confusing to approve this, but it's up to the selectmen if they want to think otherwise. But many of those talking points came up over the last 3 Board of Health meetings. So I just want to let the select board know that. Thank you.
So just in terms of enforcement, our discussion in August was that we didn't want to put an enforcement mechanism. We wanted to remind people of it and to promote it so people would really enforce it themselves. So that's why our discussion, I think, in August was not to put an enforcement mechanism because we wanted people to enforce themselves. And then I guess. It's unclear to me what redundant. Maybe we've said it another place. I'm not really sure, but that's, I guess, unclear to me what the redundant is. But
yeah,
maybe it's out there and I just didn't know about it. So.
That's what the board said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Doyle, did you have another?
Yes. Respecting the issue of redundancy, and I was wondering if Michael in a second might be willing to accept, with the modifications that were made, a tabling of this tonight for further consideration if needed in the future.
So to not do it tonight.
Correct. But to leave it on the table for further consideration as may be needed in the future.
Yeah, I mean, and I appreciate that, Arthur. I just, we were at moderate risk 3 weeks ago. We were at moderate risk 2 weeks ago. We were at high risk last week. We're going to be at high risk this week. I guess I'm not sure if we don't do it now, we probably won't ever do it or ever have a need for it. So if we, it seems to me either we think we should promote the masks, the use of masks in our business districts or not. And it's to me, it seems it's fairly simple, right? Either we think it's a good idea to do that or we don't.
I'm not suggesting, Michael, that it is other than a well-intentioned and good idea.
Sure.
The only thing that I'm offering is that tonight might not be the time. I am concerned about what's happening in the environment. We've seen what's happening with the Boston Public Schools tonight.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor has outlined the season that we're going into. I thought his words about the combination of influenza with COVID and the indistinguishable nature of the two, maybe at onset, is very significant. And that's why I don't want to not have this with the possibility of action if we need it. But I'm just curious as to whether or not we really need it tonight at this meeting. And I don't recall the exact Robert's Rules of Procedure, but if it's in order to do so, I would offer a motion to table for future consideration.
So Ms. Conlon had her hand raised. Can I take your comment before we we go to the motion for tabling, or?
Well, just for clarification, Madam Chair, I think what I hear the health director saying is that enforcement is an issue, and that would go to the issue, I think, of an order. As I'm reading this, it says, now therefore, select board, in order to help protect against the further spread, does hereby proclaim the following areas shall be promoted as mask zones to urge the use of face coverings by pedestrians. So it seems to me that this is, as Mr. Zula said, not an order, which I think is within the realm of in the jurisdiction of the Board of Health, but this is about this board as the executive board of the town proclaiming this is an important issue and wanting to promote mask zones in the business district. So I didn't really view this as, an order. I think is something different. I think this is what Mr. Zulus has drafted is really just kind of a good government type of thing where we know we're in a crisis. We know there could be a second wave coming. Milton is already in the red. Seems to me this is something that is just urging the residents to take greater caution and to be very vigilant, which I heard loudly and clearly from Dr. Campagnone. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name, Doctor. So it seems to me they're not inconsistent here, but I certainly take the views of the health director very seriously. And if this, I'm not hearing that this is a problem. I'm hearing that there's an enforcement question. Is that correct, Caroline? And it seems that we would not really have an enforcement issue here.
She said there was no problem. She said there's been no problems, 0 complaints.
That's right. There has been no complaints. And I think this will be confusing.
I agree.
And if there was complaints, I would bring it to the board and say we had multiple complaints in this area, but there has been no complaints.
Could I ask the health director, how would this, I'm not clear on how this would be confusing. So maybe I'm just missing something here.
So if I'm walking down, if I've left Abbey Park and I'm walking along the street, just walking along the street by myself, I don't have to wear a mask. If I come within 6 feet of somebody, I should have a mask on. So it's something that is already the message that you should have a mask on if you're within 6 feet. Yeah. So that's where the redundancy is. You should have a mask on. Yeah.
So with that,
even when I'm walking in Milton, I walk a lot. If I see someone coming, I will pull my mask up and put it on if I'm passing by them, or I'll step out onto the street. And people are doing that. They are stepping out and they're putting masks on. And just to have this in the commercial district, and you're urging people, but people could be angry if they see you walking along the street without a mask, and that could cause some confrontations too. But people know that they should be wearing a mask. Yeah, if they come into, and if they're going into Mr. Chan's or Abbey Park, they will be putting on a mask when they go in.
Would clarifying that in the now therefore clause, that it's, wearing masks as required under the CDC guidelines, or when social distancing is not permissible, would that sort of language clarify it so that it wouldn't create confusion, wouldn't present an enforcement order, but would at least help the community become more vigilant? I am mindful of the hour. It's 8:30. I know we have 2 complicated topics still on our agenda to go, so I'm not looking to prolong this. I'm just wondering if some further clarification in that paragraph might help. Because it seems that we're talking about a couple of different things with the proclamation versus an order that's enforceable.
Yeah. And this was brought 3 times to the Board of Health. Yeah.
Mr. Wells?
I just want to reiterate one more time, Madam Chair. If this were the police chief and it were a public safety issue, if it were the fire chief and it were, this is our lead person, our public health director. She's not given us one scintilla of concern tonight. I'm going to support her and say we shouldn't be dipping our toes in an area where we don't need to go right now. It doesn't have any teeth. It's a proclamation. I don't think we need to go there. And I think Caroline, she's got her whole board here with them tonight. And I know I will be outvoted, but I am a no vote, so I'm ready to vote.
Well, I just wanted to say I think too that maybe some of us feel that we're talking about 2 different things, that we're really seeking to help people, to remind people, to encourage them to do the 6 feet. or mask wearing. And so I see how the proclamation is worded in a way that doesn't promote that, or at least that's, so it's, I understand now what's confusing, or from the Board of Health's, point that's what's confusing, which I didn't understand that before. I still think I understood, and I support the fact that the Board of Health doesn't feel the need and isn't going to do an order for mask wearing, because the government, the state government has already put those guidelines in place on their CDC guidelines. I think the select board, though, in its guise, would like to just encourage people to keep doing the right thing, especially where now we do have this intersection of flu season, cold season, COVID, and people are getting tired and need a little encouragement. So I would like to do what we can to improve this and do some messaging that isn't confusing.
You've got a motion and a second, Madam Chair.
Mr. Zulus,
Well, Arthur wanted to table it. If I respect the idea that Arthur wants to table, I'm hesitant to do that just because where we are right now with the consistent increase that we've had. But certainly want to respect Arthur's idea. Want to respect the public health director and the Board of Health. I will say it would be redundant if we said wear a mask or be 6 feet apart. What it says is wear a mask. For those sidewalks in those areas, wear a mask. It doesn't say wear a mask or be distant. That's the difference, right? So I don't think it's confusing. It's just for those sidewalks in our business district where people walk, wear a mask. So that's what it says. But I respect, obviously, if the public health director doesn't think we need to do that, and the Board of Health doesn't think we need to do that, and if Arthur wants to table it, I guess I'm happy to do that. But Arthur,
Madam Chair and Michael, my offer, a suggestion of tabling would be to our next meeting, and with what I was looking for is an integration with what it is that our Board of Health has already promulgated itself or said, or at least a reference to that, so that some wording to your good work here could be combined with their good work, so that it's not like there are two disparate elements, but a mutually supportive and integrated messaging to the community.
yes, Ms. Conlon.
Madam Chair, in the interest of time, because I really think items 6 and 7 are going to take a lot of time, and we're only on item 4 of our agenda, and we have a lot tonight. I will support Mr. Doyle seeking to continue this, table it, but I think based on what Arthur has just said, that means continuing it to the next meeting.
and I'll agree with that as well.
Okay, thank you. And it's on the list for the next meeting. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for engaging in the conversation. It's good to be together and talk through these things, because it's how we get new understanding together. And we can't thank our Board of Health and our health director and Dr. Campagnoni, their advisor, for joining us enough. We really appreciate it, and all the work that you've done and continue to do. It's difficult work, and you're right on the front lines, and we couldn't have done all this without you, and we can't do without you in the future, so thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. And everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, Caroline.
Thank you.
Take care.
Stay well.
You too.
Thank you to the Board of Health too for, even though you didn't say, and Doctor for your time tonight.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Ms. Thermidor, for being patient and waiting all this time. So item number 5, we have Julie Thermidor, who's our civilian domestic violence advocate of DOVE, which stands for Domestic Violence Ended. And this month is Domestic Violence Month. And she's been kind enough to join us and speak to us about this very important work that she does. So thank you so much for joining us.
I think she's muted, Madam Chair.
Oh, yes, you are still muted. Oh, you're still muted. Sorry. Yes.
Thank you so much. And now that you guys had not enough time, I'm not gonna take a long time. I'll just cut off my thought because it is a long night for you guys. But I am honored and I'm immensely grateful that you guys have me coming in, because this is not a subject that we've managed to be able to discuss openly. And so I wanted to kind of bring it up a little bit. For the past 3 years since I've been with Dove, we actually have had banners. We have had a discussion because I work, actually let me back up. I am the civilian domestic violence advocate. Though I work for Dove, I work out of Milton, Randolph, and Hoboken Police Department. And I also work in the Quincy District Court, where I go into the restraining order hearing session. And I support all victims and survivors that have experienced domestic violence. And that work sometimes means different things. In the different departments, Milton is different than Randolph. Randolph has a more open cultural, many different background, and it's much larger, and their incident reports are much more complicated. Ours are much more lenient, more family, more that kind of stuff. But it's all about the demographics. And Hoboken is also very different. So I have 2 different dynamics that I work with when I do my work. And every day I review incident reports. And if it's a verbal, I will call the person. If they don't pick up, I will send a letter, just letting them know that the police was at your house. Is there anything I can talk to you about? If that person got physical or is much more complicated, I try my best to make sure that I call. Sometimes I have the officers or a detective go back to the house, because depending on how I feel based on what I read in the report, the danger that we're talking about. So all those things happen because Dove decided to have a collaboration with police departments and the courts. So Dove has 8 police departments in the South Shore area that we work in. So like I said, I work for Milton, Randolph, and Hoboken, and I have 2 other CDVAs. We call ourselves CDVA. And Braintree, Quincy, Weymouth, and Dedham. And we also have someone in the Dedham District Court, just like I am in the Quincy District Court. And our work in collaboration with the police department, not only just support the victim, but you also support the officers, the lieutenant, the whole department. Because they can just reach out and say, you know what, I noticed something, but I'm not sure what that means. While I was there, can you actually look into it? Everything that any victim or survivor speak with me is confidential. And this is something, the first thing we start talking, that's what I say. However, as a mandated reporter, if they want to kill themselves, they want to hurt somebody, then I would have to report that. And that's something that they know that happened. Or if there are children in the mix that are in danger, I have to report it to DCF. While I'm in the courtroom, it's the same thing too. But all that has changed now since COVID. I do it remote, as opposed to I had an office at Milton. I have an office in Randolph Police Department. In Hoboken, I sit in the room where all the officers usually come and take a break when they have their roll call. Out of those police departments, we have, with COVID now, the number of police reports that we read is beyond. I could have 11 to 15 police report in one police department for one morning. And in the afternoon, it might be more. Because the problem is, as you know, everybody's quarantined. Once you quarantine, this is an abuser's best dream. They sit there, they make threats, they talk about things like I have had people who actually can't leave the house. Even if they're sick, they're not allowed to go to the hospital because their partner doesn't want them to go. So those kind of collaboration, when we hear that from someone, we're gonna send an ambulance and say, well, this person is at risk of risking for the family and risking the neighbors or any family members that you may have. The ambulance is gonna make that person go for a mental health reason or for whatever reason that we feel that we can use to support it. And that's what the work does. And those collaboration we have also teaches police officers on all level the different nuances that domestic violence actually have. It's not just about the person hit you or the person speak, put you down. There's so many psychological game and certain thing that the person make you feel like that it's your problem. There is something I'm still young, but I did see that movie called Gaslight, where you think it's you. How could it not be me? Because you don't see it. And that happens a lot in domestic violence. And with that conversation, I have it with the officers. I have them with any of the victims and survivors that I encounter. I could be on the phone with a survivor 5 minutes, or I could be on the phone for an hour. I never know how long I'm going to be on the phone. And when you have shelter, depending on the trauma, how does that affect the children? There's a connotation that people believe, why doesn't a victim just leave? Why do they stay? First of all, you may not have any money. You may not have any friends or family around. You don't drive. You're afraid if you go, your children will be taken away. There's so many different reasons why someone does not leave a domestic violence relationship. And by me doing presentation like this or workshop, especially during October, which has been our busiest month every time, even through COVID, we still have October as our busiest time because there's a lot of phone calls, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of fears. And a lot of time people are so embarrassed. Family members or friends shame you and you don't want to talk about it. However, that doesn't happen with me because they know that's the work that I do. That conversation can be there. And I always make sure that I tell them there's no shame, there's no embarrassment because domestic violence knows no gender, no education, no color. It doesn't matter what finances you have. Those things happen and can happen to anyone we know. Sometimes even ourselves, because we don't really understand how it works. And there's also the other part where police officers would go there. The victim does not want their partners to be arrested. They just want the violence to stop. Not to be arrested because they believe that person may change or there's hope that things can be different. However, a police officer has a duty, according to the guidelines of Massachusetts law, if there's anything physical into the relationship and they come and witness it and are aware of it, they are required to arrest. So part of my job is also to educate a victim or a survivor. Why does the police arrest? Why does the police come in? There's something that they talk about all the time. A police officer would come in and talk to a guy and say, hey, how was the football game last night? And they automatically think a police officer who's a man is taking the side for that man. But what they're doing is something they call de-escalation. They're trying to put that person that they notice is agitated, putting that person at ease. And once that person's at ease, they're more able to understand the dynamics of what happened, even though they're not being spoken. Police officer goes on domestic violence calls, and those are one of the most dangerous for them. Because when they go into the homes, they don't know what to expect. You just say, somebody beat me up, or I'm in a relationship with someone, I was hit. When they walk in there, they don't know if the person is in the closet. Have they left? Is there a gun in the home? Are there children? Are they being held? So there's so many different layers and dynamics for a police officer when they go into a room. If I already had the case before in the past, I have that information. That conversation can happen in a way to also protect both the officer and the victim and the partner. So that the work is involving so many different layers. what does my job look like? I can't even describe it because not every day is ever the same, ever. I could wake up today and my phone rings 5 times with, thank you so much for doing this for me, and I'm grateful. And then tomorrow, that same person call, there's another situation that the person have experienced. And during October, what we do is, because October, everything has increased, we try to bring more awareness. Like this year, this is the first time we have a banner at 2 churches. Well, 1 temple, 1 church. We have the United Parkway, and then we have the temple in Holbrook. Why it was important for me is because a lot of people congregate at church or at temples. The church or temples are not talking about it. So therefore, I wanted to bring that conversation there. So I try to reach to the community, join different platforms, talk to different people, offer certain information, sit with people on the phone if you just want to ask me. Talk about your safety plan with someone who, if you have a fight in the kitchen, you don't stay in the kitchen. So all this kind of information I try to do almost every day during October because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. But doesn't mean we're not doing it any other time. We also have fundraisers because any of our services at Dove are free of charge. So even our shelter, everything that's done that's needed in the shelter is free of charge. So I put a great work into the outreach on top of the fact that I do the safety planning and the supportive counseling and all the other work, providing information and stuff like that. Are there any questions for me? Because I feel like I'm speaking fast.
No, perfect. Do any of the members have questions or comments?
I don't have a question, Madam Chair, but Julie, thank you very much for all of your work. It's always important, but now more than ever in this COVID environment where so many people are working from home or quarantined at home, or just, especially I'm sure in the early days when there was a stay-at-home more common than perhaps there is now. So thank you for all of your important work and for being here tonight.
Thank you for saying that. And we do believe that at the end of COVID, that's when we're going to see a bigger surge, because people can now go out, they can leave. So we believe that happened because there has been research has been done even in China, where the rate of divorce and relationship that have had abuse went skyrocket. And we understand that because normally it's hard. So I can understand that now. But there's no questions. I mean, my number is always, I have a card at the Milton Police Department. I'd be happy to actually share the number. You can call, leave me a message. I don't have to know names. If there's any question, someone wants to help someone, they don't know how. Even if it's a teen. Like we have a program at the high school and at the library before COVID, where we do workshops, high school, peers, and a library, Milton Library, where we sit down and talk about teens to ask questions, to educate. Because if you bring more awareness, we think maybe more lives would be saved. Or someone may at least stand up and talk. And then we can at least have that one person, it makes a difference. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope I offer every information globally because I didn't want, everything I wrote, I cut it off in like a paragraph because I realized it's a long night for you guys. Wow. And I appreciate all the work you're doing also, being a Milton resident.
Well,
so I listened tonight. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we would like you to share your number, and then Mr. Wells has something he would like to say.
Okay.
If you could share your number, please.
Go ahead, Joe. You want to give your number first?
Yes, why not? It's 617-831-8326. 617-831-8326. And I also have email. I have the Milton PD email, and I also, which is on the screen, I think. And also my Dove email, which is julie.thermidor@dovema.org. julie.thermidor@dovema.org. And Mr. Wells, I know you had a big hand into this, so thank you too.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Well, so I spent enough time in the police station, so I don't have to go back there anymore. But listen, first, thank you for coming in. Thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me this. You are correct. It is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is really, I thought was really critical for my colleagues to see your face and hear. What I say often is you can ride around in this community all day long and it's highly unlikely you'll ever see a domestic violence incident, but as you said, It does happen everywhere, in every culture, in every community, in every race, in every sex. And it's still one of the leading causes of serious assaults and homicides in the state every year. So thank you for everything. It's not an easy, I know I can say with some fruition that it's not an easy task that you have, and all the points that you alluded to that exist, especially for domestic violence victims. You are, so you're a great advocate for Dove, and you're a great advocate for the Milton Police Department. And thank you very much for coming in tonight.
I am grateful. Thank you. And if you're done, may I leave? Because you probably don't want to talk all the stuff in front of me, but I can say.
Well, absolutely. I'm sure that Arthur and Mike also would like to say thank you, but I'm sure you would like to leave. And
I don't have to leave. Trust me, I'm on call, so I'm working all night. My phone doesn't turn off at all for 7 days.
Okay. Well, Mr. Doyle and Mr. Zulus, would you like to say anything or ask a question? No.
No, I'll just join in all in what Katie and Richard said. We appreciate obviously all the good work that you're doing, and go back to either doing it or to getting yourself some rest.
No, I think I have until midnight.
Well,
we have other events that we're preparing because we're having our new fundraiser that's starting on the 23rd. So it's going live on on Zoom, and it's on our website. It's called Harvesting Hope, and so we doing all this trying different things when there's no one on the system. So we each have our own part. In October, we don't really sleep.
Wow.
I know I laugh, but sometimes we don't.
Well, I'm glad you shared that with us. Mr. Doyle?
I would just like to compliment you on your work. I was first schooled in this area decades ago by a relative who was a Boston police sergeant, and the professionalism that has been maturing in this very important area of societal treatment is remarkable. And I compliment you and your colleagues on what you do, and I extend to you the very best wishes of my spouse, Susan Doyle, who used to be at Glover School and knew you there.
Oh my God, you're the husband. Well, pleasure to finally meet you, sir. I have heard a lot about you for years. I had two kids who went to Glover, and then she still was there for me to come and substitute teach. So it's been a long history. Please say hello.
I will, thank you.
And thank you, sir.
Well, and I echo everyone's sentiments, Ms. Thermidor. We're very fortunate. There's a lot of sadness. Everybody wants domestic violence to end and people to be healed and real love to be governing all of our relationships. And I'm just glad that we have you, our residents have you, and the Milton Police Department, and Holbrook and Randolph. You sound like an incredible team. And
amazing.
Yeah.
I am really well supported by every other department is too, but I can just reach out anytime and without feeling like, oh my God, that's how much support I feel that I get into those departments. And that's a great thing, because you cannot have all that work and don't have that kind of support and do well at it. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful a lot. And also the United Parkway Church, I must say, have been a very good ally to us. We just recently got the vigil.
Yes.
The prayer vigil. I think Hillary, I sent it to you, right? Is Hillary there?
I think you did send it to her because she had also commented on your letter. For anyone who hasn't read Ms. Thermidor's letter in the Times, it's brief, but it's a big education in that brief space. So
I know they only gave me that much because they know I'll talk too much.
but you used it really well, and as I said, it's a real education. And you had pointed out before that sometimes people don't realize what domestic violence really encompasses.
Right. And we do have to talk about it. That's the only way we can stop it, because a lot of people do not. You can live in the same home, and both people are being abused, like sisters. they're not talking to each other because they're afraid and embarrassed. So the more we talk about it comfortably, even when we're not comfortable, just ask questions. That's one step forward. You know, you don't be a bystander. You know, and that's why I gave my number. I said, this is my work phone. I can be texted, I can be called. It doesn't matter, because the more we inform, the better our families, children, partners can be. You know, so. Like I said, you don't stop me from talking. I will keep you online.
Well, thank you. I think we'd like to keep you here all evening, but we do need to move on.
To move on to the next.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you again for joining us, and thank you again, Mr. Wells, for bringing.
Thank you again, Julie. I already texted Chief King. I told him what a great job he did.
Thank you. Thank you. Anytime you need me, I'm there. Let me know.
Hopefully we don't.
Well, yeah, somebody else we know might need it. All right, good night.
Thank you. Stay well.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so now we move on. Thank you, everyone who's in the attendees panel. We still have about 40 people. Thank you for hanging in there. We're now moving on to our 2 public meetings. The first one is for the project eligibility letter application for 16 Amor Road. And I just want to go over, just for people who maybe joined us a little later, I had gone over a little bit of the process for the project eligibility letter and the wider comprehensive permit. And then I'll talk about how to send us additional comments for people who haven't done that yet. So a comprehensive permit project, as I said, is designed to give relief from local zoning. So it doesn't follow the typical permitting process for, say, if you or I were building a single family home in a place that it was zoned for. So the first stage is a project eligibility site approval by a subsidizing agency, which means an agency that says, yes, this site is eligible for, or is generally appropriate for residential housing, and subsidizing because they have to approve the project that in a way that says the developer isn't making more than, if it's a rental, 10% profit on the project, and that it's being properly funded by a bank that's designed especially for affordable housing projects. So this project eligibility part of the comprehensive 40B project process is at the select board level. This is where we actually have an opportunity to collect feedback from residents. We also collect feedback from our departments, other boards, other committees, and we are able to respond to Mass Housing, which in this case is a subsidizing agency, and talk about this application. After that, they generally approve it, and then it goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a full application. This is sort of a very skinny version of an application. It doesn't have all of the plans and things like that. So then it would go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then we all have the opportunity to take a deep dive into that application and go through the hearing process. But the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals, has authority over that process, and the select board can only respond as a member of the public could respond, and the town and also the other town committees and boards and staff. So after that, if when it goes through the Zoning Board of Appeals, After that, there would be a final approval by the subsidizing agency, just saying that all the requirements have been met in order to continue on as a 40B project. And then it goes to construction and occupancy, and that's way, way down the road. But I just wanted people to know in general what the process was and where the select board really has some ability to weigh in the beginning stages, and this is our part of the process. So that being said, if you want to send in comments and you haven't yet, you can send them to our town administrator, Michael Dennehy at mdennehy, it's MDENNEHY at townofmilton.org. You can also send them in by mail to Mr. Dennehy at 525 Canton Avenue, Milton, MA 02186. I'm sure you all know that. And also, the next step after this is that we're in the process of drafting a letter, which will be our response to Mass Housing. And on November 4th, we'll be reviewing those letters in order to approve them. Although I think we may be getting an extension, so we'll look at it on the 4th anyway. But I think we may have an extension. But on that date, we also, after the meeting, we put the letter up on the website in the 40B area, which I've been sending to everyone who sent me something, but you can find it on the select board page at the top. Then people can take a look at it, and if there are additional comments, people are free to send those too. And I think that's basically that part of it. Now, I just wanted to go over the things that actually the letter, that our response, the things that we actually can comment on at this point in the process. So there are 3 things. So one is whether the site of the proposed project is appropriate for residential development. So taking into consideration information that's provided by municipal parties, that's us, the town, regarding actions previously taken to provide affordable housing needs. Then the second thing is whether the conceptual design is generally appropriate for the site on which it's to be located. And that's supposed to take into consideration factors such as the proposed use, the conceptual site plan, the building massing, topography, environmental resources, and integration into the existing development patterns. And then the third thing is whether the proposed project appears financially feasible within the housing market in which it's sited. And all those 3 things are actually up on the website on the project eligibility letter page. So if you already sent us comments, or if you haven't, you can go back and look through those and tailor your comments to those if you like. But you can know that that's how we are able to respond, and that's how we will. Those are the things that we'll be responding to. And if you wanted to look at examples, you can look at some of the other project eligibility letters that we've already sent that are up on the website. Now, before I open it, do members have anything to add? Did I forget anything to tell residents? Oh, Mr. Dennehy?
If I may, Madam Chair, so I was in receipt of a phone call from Mike Busby from Mass Housing on Monday. Mike has offered the town a 30-day extension for both of the new applications that were filed due to COVID and some of the response times necessary. So if you take that under advisement tonight, I just have to let Mr. Busby know. I believe the current deadline is November 9th, that this would extend that out. And it's just a matter of me returning a phone call to Mr. Busby or having town council send a letter formally to his attention notifying him that an extension has been asked for.
Would we like to make a motion to extend out for a month? I think that would would be very helpful.
I'll
with-
make that motion. I'll make a motion to extend the applications for Amore Road and for Brush Hill Road out 30 days. Is it 30 days from today, Michael, or just, can we go
No.
30 days from today?
30 days from November 9th.
30 days from November 9th.
I'll check the calendar just to make sure what that date is, but yeah,
Okay.
30 days from November 9th.
And to authorize, I know we've done it by letter in the past. Perhaps that's the best
You
way.
want to authorize who? Yourself or Mr. Denny? Who do you want the motion authorized?
Well, it's been Mr. Dennehy or Mr. Freitag in the past. So, but he reached out to Mr. Dennehy. So.
And to authorize the town administrator to respond.
Or, Richard, could we just clarify to seek the request or to,
Seek the
to make the
request, seek the
request?
request. That's fine, to make the request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Has it been seconded already? If not, I'll second.
Yes, I second it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I didn't hear. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Zulus,
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dennehy. So, okay, so now to the business at hand. We are, we'll take people in order. I already have 2 people with their hands raised, but as people raise their hands, I can call on them, and if they would give their name and their address, and then please share your statement with us. And thank you, everyone, again, for your patience. We really appreciate it. So the first person is Ned Corcoran. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Ned Corcoran, I'm a resident at 70 Morton Road in Milton, and I'm actually here having been retained by a group of residents who are abutters to the project proposed for 16 Amore Road in Milton. It's actually the first time in my professional experience that I have represented abutters in opposition to a project, particularly in the town of Milton. It's almost a personal, professional conflict to do it. But in this case, and relative to some of these other projects that have come, I think it's appropriate. I've had a professional philosophy of working with developers to pursue projects to the what I call the maybe the edge of reasonable. And I've been with developers who have been very successful in that regard, and some where we came close but didn't quite get there. But to be faced with a handful of projects that sort of dropped out of the sky without any notion of involving neighborhoods in conversations about what and how and under what circumstances projects might be developed going forward is difficult. I understand that the 40B law is a tough law, and the strictures that it imposes on the ways that 40B skirts zoning and other concerns is difficult. I quite frankly have used that where appropriate to help guide some projects to perhaps a greater density than they might otherwise have wanted to get to. But again, to use that as a tool to argue for reasonable, what I think a reasonably scaled development, as opposed to simply drop an asteroid out of the sky, is a big difference. I think there are, and the other thing before I get into specifics is the town has worked hard, particularly in the last number of years, to work to catch up and address the issue of affordability. We've been behind for quite a while, and we're doing a good job of catching up. One of the things that I would imagine it's frustrating for members of boards in this regard is really how little aware neighborhoods really are about the level of effort that's been undertaken. The master plan that was put forward several years ago, the update to the initial housing production plan, and the new plan that was produced in January. I don't think people understand very much about the level of effort that was done. Efforts to rezone some of our areas in town to invite additional density on reasonable scales, has been significant. But at the end of the day, housing production plans and master plans sort of fly around the sky at about 5,000 to 10,000 feet. And it's nice for people to think, well, we'd like to see affordability and we'd like to see more housing produced here, there, or somewhere. But it's quite a difference when the plan drops to the ground and all of a sudden there's a development that's facing you and your neighbors, and you really didn't quite understand what the implications might be for moving these plans forward. With specific attention to the Amor Road process, we'll be filing more formal comments, and I'll be doing that to this board and to Mass Development directly on behalf of the neighbors. But there are three things that I think that sort of jump out at me as I started to take a look at this. The first is with the issue of the conceptual design. This is 16 units on less than an acre. There are four bedroom townhomes proposed for the frontage of Amor Road. But to the rear is a wall of 12 two-story townhouses that sort of extend almost the entire length of the rear lot line and abut a single family dwelling. That is just completely out of character with what's around it. Very similar to these other large scale proposals sort of drop in and dwarf whatever else is around. And I think it's inappropriate in scale from that regard. More importantly, and not specifically in the area that you highlighted, Madam Chair, is the issue of safety. Amor Road is at the intersection of Brush Hill Road and Truman Highway, two very, very busy roadways that merge right at the bottom of Amor Road. The plan calls for 22 parking spaces to sit between the four townhomes at front on Amor Road and the 12 townhouse units to the rear. So 22 parking spaces with traffic coming in and out onto a new curb cut that would be proposed on Brush Hill Road, feet from the intersection of Amor Road and Truman Highway. There's no signalization there. There's two stop signs. There's a very dangerous merge that takes place now. It's a high accident location along that stretch of both roads. And we'll be digging more particularly into that. But I think there's a real question of safety of introducing that volume of traffic to that specific intersection without any real distance between the driveway entrance itself and that very busy intersection. So the last thing I would say is sort of related to that is that, there's some suggestion, I think, in the application that this is a walkable district. There are 30 parking spaces proposed for 16 units. That's almost 2 spaces per unit. That is pretty excessive in terms of parking relative to units that should be proposed that would be otherwise either transit friendly or walkable friendly. You're going to need vehicles to move to and from this site, and I just think that the density relative to that, relative to parking, is inappropriate. Those are our comments for now. We look forward to following this along further and working with this board and other boards to see what we can do to manage some of the outcomes that are sitting in front of us. And so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Corcoran. And our next person is Brian Furs. Hello.
Good evening, Brian Furs, 630 Brush Hill Road. Thank you for the time. Thank you for your service. I know the requirements that serving on a board take, and I know that these meetings can be long and arduous, so thank you for your service. And also, I can't, as a former member of the planning board, not acknowledge my deep surprise and, I guess, respect for Mr. Corcoran to come to the other side. So congratulations. I expect we'll see you back where you belong shortly. I generally agree with what Mr. Corcoran just said. I will take this moment to say that I don't think it's appropriate to say that these 40B applications just dropped out of the sky. I think that Milton has been, for many, many reasons, careening towards this eventuality of having a huge number of 40Bs fall on our plate for many years. And it's disappointing that we're here. I think that many boards and many people who have served this town in the last decade have worked very hard to try to move us away from this place. But unfortunately, it looks like it will prove that this may have been too little too late. So I will give specific comments on these, but I'd just like to take a couple of minutes, and I'll try to be very brief, to talk about I think where I hope that this board and other boards and all of us can try to get here. Mr. Corcoran referenced the housing production plan, which is ready for passage and adoption, and I think that's great. It will be at least the second that I'm aware of that have been passed, and there have probably been more. Of course, that's the first step, and now creating units to support that housing production plan is the more important task, because that's what actually provides us with some time and cover from the 40B law. So hopefully we can find a way to get some units on the books as a town and start to move towards housing production responsibly. I think, you know, we have decades of history in this town of working with developers to modify proposals to be more responsible and appropriate, whether they're site specific, which most of them have been, or as of late with Milton Village, more regional and or more neighborhood focused. I think it's incumbent on all of the neighborhoods to do their part in getting to 40B compliance. I don't think it's fair for any neighborhood to bear the brunt of all of the housing production. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to find ways to work with developers on the different tracts of land that come before us to find a way to get there, but it needs to be done responsibly and in a way that protects the town that we've all chosen to make our homes and have worked so hard to protect over the years. Mr. Corcoran cites 16 units on less than an acre at Amore, and that is obviously a scale that does not meet what we would consider typical residential in Milton. I think the proposal for Brush Hill Road, 936 Brush Hill Road, is actually more than that. I think it's 20 units on less than an acre. Mr. Corcoran also cites the wall of 12 townhouses at Amore, which I agree with him is out of scale with that neighborhood. At 936 Brush Hill Road, we're talking about 2 flat stack buildings, 5 stories, I believe. It will be another monolithic structure proposed by this developer, very similar to the 2 he's proposed at Canton Avenue and Blue Hill Avenue. They will just be totally inappropriate and out of scale with our town. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to try to work to find a way to make them more appropriate in nature. We may not be able to prevent them, but I do think it's important for us to try very hard to make them more reasonable and appropriate. It is important to call out that there are no sidewalks on Brush Hill Road. These projects are supposed to be walkable and transit oriented. It was called out earlier in citizen speak that Brush Hill Road is not a safe place to walk. And as a resident of Brush Hill Road, I can attest to that. I would hope that the town will take a hard look at, you know, whether there's any mitigation that could be done to make these roads safer for pedestrian if we're going to have to be increasing the density on it of people that are living here. I do think that these projects could be responsible. I think it's important for the town to try to figure out a way to work with this developer on all 4 of the projects that they're proposing: Canton Avenue, Blue Hill Avenue, Amore, and Brush Hill Road, to see if there's a path that we can all work together and work through the 40B if that's the developer's preference, to get to a friendly 40B. It will save the developer time and money. It will save the town time and money, and it will help the town protect its character, and it will also help us get affordable housing on the books. I think the same needs to be said of East Milton and other neighborhoods where there are opportunities to work towards our affordable housing guidelines. I understand, as I think increasingly most of the neighbors understand, that the ZBA process is where the Blue Hill Avenue and Canton Avenue situations lie today, and ultimately where these applications will likely lie as well. But I do believe that it's incumbent for this board, the planning board, the town staff, and all of the town meeting members and just citizens and neighbors to try to find a more reasonable and productive path, whether it's these developers or others, to get to affordable housing compliance, and also to try to scale these developments to a more reasonable level. This does feel like an attack, especially in this side of town right now, when you have one developer proposing hundreds and hundreds of units on a scale that's candidly unprecedented. So I do hope we can all continue to work together and not just see all of us saying, well, it's a foregone conclusion. I think Milton has proven time and time again that we can rise above this and we can find a better way. And I encourage us all to continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Furs. Our next speaker, and please, again, anyone, if I mispronounce your name, please correct me. Our next speaker is Lyra Brissino. If you could.
Good evening. My name is Lyra Brissino. I'm here with my husband, Carol Settlesing. We live at 295 Brush Hill Road. We've been residents here since 1992, and we have some very serious concerns about the proposed residences for 16 Amore for various reasons, some of which were covered by Mr. Corcoran and Mr. Furs. But one of the biggest concerns we have is the safety issue. I mean, if you're at all familiar with the intersection, if you walk down Brush Hill Road toward Truman Parkway and take a turn to the right or a turn to the left within half a mile, right now there are at least 3 or 4 makeshift memorials of fatal accidents that have happened there in recent years. And it's well known, you know, for the residents in our neighborhood that on any given day, you just look out and there are streams of police lights dealing with accidents from people who come flying down Truman Parkway. And that particular intersection is especially risky because of the tight angles that those 3 roads, Truman Parkway, Brush Hill, and Amore, intersect. I mean, even just observing driving patterns from drivers who might be coming down Amore Road, turning onto Brush Hill Road, people often turn on the wrong side because they could partially see that nothing might be coming. And to have 16 dwellings with close to 30 parking spaces right at that intersection, in my mind, in our mind, really sets the stage for an increase in such motor vehicle accidents, not to mention the risks with pedestrians, and our streets are heavily traveled with people getting their exercise on streets that have no sidewalks. So I agree with many of the sentiments that were echoed by the previous 2 residents. But also, we're concerned about some of the consequences that we have seen from recent development on Brush Hill Road with storm water coming down Brush Hill Road and causing tremendous issues on Truman Parkway with erosion from just the sheer removal of loads and loads of trees in the vicinity and water coming down and really changing the whole topography of our own backyard from excessive water running into our property indirectly from the projects that have recently been developed in the vicinity of our home. So I feel that this is certainly something that will need to be taken into consideration in terms of the appropriateness of the site. But also, over the years, for many years, my husband and I have felt that Brush Hill Road is traversed so aggressively as a cut-through street that we have often wondered how it is that we don't have speed bumps to slow people down, because Brush Hill Road is such a long street connecting Truman all the way up to 138. And it is remarkable the speed at which people cut across Brush Hill Road, and with a concentration of new residents at the end of Amore and Brush Hill would only likely increase that traffic. So these are but a few of our concerns, and we do intend to submit a letter to document those concerns.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Prasanna. I appreciate your comments and your coming, and also for giving us some written comments as well. That will be helpful. And our next speaker is Patrick Uppetham.
Hi, this is Kate Uppetham and Patrick Uppetham. Together we are at 59 Amore Road, and we've been here for a little over 2 years, but we've lived in Milton for more than 10. And I'm speaking about 16 Amore Road. I won't repeat the many concerns that have been shared about the 16 Amore that have already been shared, that we share as well. We are very concerned about the traffic, very concerned about the density, very concerned about how inconsistent that proposal is with the nature of the rest of the surrounding area. We really are one family and sometimes two family houses in the vicinity. There's anything like what's being proposed. And the magnitude of it will just dramatically change, I think, the nature of the neighborhood. The one thing I think that hasn't been shared, and I just feel I'll add to the conversation, is an equity perspective for the people who are proposed to live in this low-income housing. I just feel that people who are, accessing affordable housing are entitled to dignity, and they're entitled to a fair opportunity. And the proposal that's being put forward has no yards, it has no green space, it has no common area for people. People are squashed in together in the proposed housing. I just think that's very unfair to them. Just because they're low income doesn't mean that they should be squished up together like that. I assume that there would be children moving into that housing area. We welcome them to the neighborhood. I'm not against 40B housing. I'm for it. I'm just not for it at that density. And when I think about if there are children in that housing area, I think about, there aren't playgrounds in this neighborhood. Where are they going to play? They're just going to have a parking lot in front of them, and then dangerous roads surrounding them. It just feels very unfair. So I want to add the equity piece to the conversation, and we will submit written comments as well. And I'm looking at my husband in case he has anything to add.
I got nothing to add based off of that. That's a lot of the folks that have already spoken mirror many of the sentiments that we feel, and I think my wife actually spoke very well for all the sentiments that we also additionally wanted to add. So, thank you.
Thank you. I very much appreciate all of your comments. Our next speaker, it looks like it's a phone, so I'm just going to say says Samsung SMG 950. So if you could give us your name and your address, that would be very helpful. Thank you. So it's difficult because there's no phone number, which is usually how we help people identify that they've been recognized. If you're looking at the TV screen and you see Samsung and you have a Samsung phone, I would say something and see if we can, you need to press *6 to unmute. That may be the issue.
They're muted, Madam Chair.
No,
they're not now. They just came off.
Okay, I think we can hear you if you just speak up a little.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I was trying multiple things to get off mute. My name is Cindy Lucas, and I live at 470 Brush Hill Road with my husband Blake and our 2 children who attend the Milton Public Middle and High Schools. And I guess I just wanted to, my concerns echo many of what's been raised on the call tonight, but it's the cumulative impact, right, of these 4 proposed projects in our neighborhood. I know that 16 Amor is adding, 16 more units, just down Brush Hill Road, and 936 is adding 20 more. But that's in addition to the 118 that have been proposed at Blue Hill Ave and 124 at 64 Canton Ave. And that's a total of 278 units within a 2-mile radius of each other and within 1.1 miles of our home. So, the safety concern is very much there. My kids both walk, bike, or take the bus to school every day, and they're doing that on Blue Hill Ave, which has sidewalks on only one side of the road, and then limited places where they can cross at a light or at a crosswalk. And then once they do that, they end up on Brush Hill Road, which doesn't have sidewalks, some limited visibility because of some of the turns that are there, and really frequent high-speed traffic. And my concern is that that's going to get much worse with hundreds of additional cars on these primary and secondary roadways. And how can we address that and mitigate those impacts to our kids and their ability to safely leave home and get to Kelly Field, where they can, play and be outside, or to the school and to after school activities. And so that's my main area. I also wanted to echo some of the comments that were made about just how much traffic is already there on Blue Hill Ave, Brush Hill Road, and Canton Ave, and those surrounding streets. That can they handle the number of cars that are going to come in, and the backups that are already there today. And then lastly, the change in the character and the feel of our neighborhood with these very large scale buildings abutting mostly single and multifamily homes. I think we have a really unique character, a very diverse section of Milton, and I love that about where we are. And I think that the addition of 40B projects would be helpful, but how can we mitigate, so many units coming into such a small area in such a fast succession of projects at the same time? So thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming and speaking. Our next person is Robert Galvin. If you would please give us your address.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Attorney Robert Galvin. I'm an attorney from Duxbury, Massachusetts. My address is 10 Enterprise Street, Suite 3 in Duxbury. Although I'm located physically some distance away from Milton, Milton and 40Bs are something I'm quite familiar with. I was one of the attorneys that was involved in the litigation of the Randolph Avenue project for one of the abutters, the Carlin family, who was immediately abutting the 93 units on what was functionally 3 upland acres of land. So I'm also a town council in 4 communities. I'm pretty familiar with this process. And I guess the message that I would like to relate on behalf of the Brush Hill Road neighbors and Cushing Hill Road neighbors that I represent, which form 26 separate households and about 49 people, is that the selectmen should take every opportunity to convince Mass Housing that this is a project, in particular the 936 Brush Hill Road project, is not the right project in not the right location. And I am going to submit to Mr. Dennehy our comments for your incorporation to Mass Housing. I would like to just touch on a couple of things that I think it's important for the select board to be thinking about. And I would say, in addition to the other project, which is dense, this project is more dense at 936. It is 20 units on 0.92 acres with 35 parking spaces. If you look at the site plans that were submitted, I believe sheet A5 kind of best represents what they actually intend to do to the site. They're going to take every tree on this entire site down. The site has an elevation of about 124 in the rear of the property. Down at the street, it's about 102. The first of the two very large buildings is going to be located about 16 feet from the edge of the pavement, and the retaining wall is another 5 or 6 feet closer. And the first building is situated atop a retaining wall, which is probably 10 feet in height. If you're trying to compare that to what it looks to the single family home next door at 924, that's about 16 to 20 feet taller than the highest ridge of the roof at 924. And that's the first building that's situated at the bottom of the hill. So you could understand our real concern, not only on behalf of that resident, but all the other residents that live there, that this is really a white elephant in this neighborhood. This applicant alleges that they're trying to balance the single-family nature of the Brush Hill Road area with the institutional nature of Cully College. On behalf of this neighborhood association, I've dealt with Brush Hill. I attended planning board meetings where they talked about building new residential dormitories when they've acquired other residential properties and converted them to institutional use. In stark contrast to this developer, Curry College actually met with the neighbors, created buffer zones, did the very best they could to try to buffer some buildings that don't really fit in the neighborhood too, but promised to be accountable, promised to be responsible, and maintained open space. There is no open space on this property when it's done. Brush Hill Road, I haven't been able to determine this yet, and I wish I had more chance to do that, but is one of the great scenic roads in the town. And if it is a scenic road, there are implications under Chapter 40, Section 15C. I've read the master plan. One of the primary goals all the way along was to find smaller housing units in the suitable locations with mixed use that are walkable to public transportation. None of that exists with either of these projects. Another phase one priority was to preserve the character of these distinctive neighborhoods of the town. This project and the other project do nothing to further that interest. We think that there probably is a demand for smaller multifamily units in areas that you can access public transportation, but that's not this part of town. There's very other sheets that it would be great if you could, as a select board, just take a peek at, because to understand the scale of this project and how it doesn't fit into this neighborhood is only evident by looking at the plans. I just highlight two things. As I said, they're going to take every tree down. What they're not telling you is how much earth removal is going to be necessary. But if you look at the finished grades of the site, at some point they're going to have to come in for an earth removal permit, either to the Zoning Board of Appeals or to another board, and they're going to be taking out significant quantities to get rid of the hill here. There's absolutely no room for snow storage. They've put some very nice little elevation symbols on their plans. They show a biker and a walker in front of this property, and if you've walked along the road as I have in this neighborhood, you understand that neither of those things are possible or prudent or safe. And that just highlights the fact that this developer is out of touch with what they're proposing in this neighborhood. So in terms of unique housing options, I think all of my clients are in favor of those, but not in a distinctive neighborhood where it doesn't fit. And it does nothing to foster a sense of community. I heard a prior speaker say there's nothing for the families that might live here to use. There are no recreational amenities. There is no open space. There's not even a picnic table on this site. And so I will put those comments in writing and send them along, but I really wanted you to take this opportunity and don't lose it with Mass Housing to provide a firm response. And I've been on the receiving end of a denial before, one that I sought on behalf of the town of Norwell and its selectmen, where we had a project that was located at Queen Anne's Corner that just didn't fit. Mass Housing, it's not a foregone conclusion that you're going to be in a position where they won't be responsive to your comments and demand this developer do something different. I agree that it's ordinarily a tough road to hoe, but I can tell you it's not it's an important thing to do to create the best letter you can, and we will support you and give you all of our comments so that you can make that response on behalf of everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to remind people we're still on 16A more. So if there are people who still would like to speak to 16A more, please have your hand up, and then we'll move on when there's no one. Okay. Gregory Mumford, if you would please give us your address. You're still muted.
I'm at 65 Cushion Road.
Thank you.
And I've been living here for about 16 years now. And I look at Truman Parkway and I see memorials down Truman Parkway. And, you know, that traffic is going to make more of those memorials. And I'm not sure what those accidents were, but people's lives were lost in those memorials that you see posted up on those trees down there. So that's my comment to that. And mostly I wanted to comment on the 936 project because that's really close to my house.
Okay. Well, if you just hang on for 1 minute, stay right where you are. Does anybody else wish to speak to 16A more? I don't think so. So please go ahead, Mr. Mumford.
No, just the 936. Yeah, just listening to what Mr. Galvin said, it was perfect for what he said about that property. I don't think it fits in the neighborhood. It's definitely going to change the neighborhood dramatically. And, you know, I just want to know, it's just a foregone conclusion. Usually these hearings mean nothing because the developer has the money and money talks and complaints walk. So I'm just hoping that there's some recourse in this so that we could stop that project or get something different that mostly fits the neighborhood. That's really just a comment.
Thank you. I think everybody wants to see something, you know, a good project that fits in and integrates well. But that, I suppose I can't really speak for the whole board because we haven't been able to talk about it yet. But we'll be doing our best. Is there anything else that you would like to say, Mr. Dennehy?
Can I just say, I think this is an appropriate time to say that as the town administrator, I have asked town planner Tim Zawinski and assistant town planner Allison Quinn to collect to review both of these petitions for the projects. And what they do is very similar to all of the 40B proposals that come to us. They solicit comments from our subject matter experts. So Chief King from the police department, Chief Madden, Superintendent Jett from the school department, all of our subject matter experts will review these documents and come up with comments to submit to this board. And they in fact become part of the testimony and the letter that's sent to Mass Housing. But I think it's just a good time to let everybody viewing at home and those that took time out of their night tonight to speak, that the town is also collecting comments from their subject matter experts with respect to these projects, some inefficiencies and efficiencies with the projects that will be submitted to this board prior to the letter going out.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I think too we can add, you know, the Conservation Commission also. I know their conservation agent has already gone out and looked at these, as well as the planning board will be weighing in, and we're fortunate enough there's an architect and people have various specialties on that board as well. So the Board of Health actually has a place in this too. So you know, we will be doing that, and there are if the project eligibility letter does get issued and it goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals, there's a much greater ability to get traffic studies and things. People have mentioned a few intersections, those three streets, Amor and Brush Hill and Truman Parkway. And so, and even Robin Street, that was mentioned. Those are things that we can help the Zoning Board of Appeals know that are important to look at, consider. Yes, Mr. Dennehy?
Right. And I should add that these comments aren't limited just to the town of Milton. The DCR and MassDOT will weigh in with their traffic engineers and give their comments where they feel necessary, similar to some of the other projects that have come through town. But if it is cross-jurisdictional, we will ask for their input as well. So it's an aggregate a letter that will be submitted, and town planners is pulling that together.
Mr. Wells?
I just want to follow up quickly. I have a couple of comments, but I want to follow up to Mr. Dennehy's remarks. I don't know if you mentioned DCR, as we do know, that aspect of Truman and the lower end of Brush Hill Road from Amor north to 138 is DCR jurisdiction. For the residents who spoke tonight, there are actually 5 memorials, 3 fatality sites to the left between Amor and the Boston line, or slightly over to Hyde Park, and then 2 to the right, one which is not more than 100 feet from the intersection of Amor Road. I believe that's the most famous, most recent one. And then one that actually was one of the last ones I attended before I retired is a young woman who was killed, a pedestrian who was struck right by Cheever Street. There's memorials at both. So this road, for all of my career, that's been an issue for both the MDC previously and the DCR now. And I think that when you talk about bringing partners in this, DCR needs to weigh in on this as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there others who wish to speak to 936 Brush Hill Road? I don't want to move on before everybody's had a chance to speak. Yes, I know it was Pat Mulligan before, but I'm not sure. Perhaps it's Jamie Mulligan.
No, Ms. Collins, still Pat Mulligan. I'm sorry to speak again, but I really, where we are on Robin Street is going to be affected not only by the Blue Hill Ave development, but also by this Brush Hill Road development and by the 16 Amor Road development. It's really a triangle, and I hope you guys, I'm sure that Chief Wells is aware, but that's like all the people caught in that triangle are going to be affected by these developments, and it's going to be, again, it's very concerning to the people who live here. And this developer, it's hard not to feel some animosity towards these people, because they just, like one of the speakers said earlier tonight, they're plopping these things in. And it as it turns out, again, there is a triangle from Brush Hill, Amor to Blue Hill Avenue, leaving out of it the Canton Ave thing, which is another whole story. But I just hope you folks understand that we're going to be caught in this thing. And, it just doesn't seem like a very safe thing for the people who are going to be there. And that's all I want to say. I'm sorry to bother you again.
Thank you. Amanda Serio is next.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Amanda Serio, and I live at 995 Brush Hill Road. So we're just a little bit down the street from the 936 project. And I won't repeat what a lot of people said. I think the thing that is so frustrating is that, we live literally directly across the street from Curry College. And, we've lived through Curry purchasing 1000 Brush Hill Road and developing that with the dorms behind it and the administrative buildings. And then they've also added in a number of dorms, further up Brush Hill Road, more towards Dana. And, as people have said, Curry has been really respectful of the neighbors. They've always reached out to us. We're aware of when construction is happening. And even with the 1000 Brush Hill Road location, they kept the building, they kept the look and feel of it, and it still, works with the neighborhood. And those buildings that are dorms that are further back, more recessed, you can't really see them from the road. They've done a great job of, really, I think, keeping the look and feel of the neighborhood. And I'm just astounded that any developer would think that the project that's being proposed at 936 fits into the neighborhood in any way, shape, or form. I mean, these are all homes that are, usually on roughly an acre of land, and you're looking at putting, 20 apartment units there with 35 parking spaces in this just very narrow, deep lot. I also would agree that not only it's the traffic on Brush Hill Road, which is already horrendous, and trying to walk your dog or have your kids go on a bike it's not really feasible or safe. But I would also say that that it needs to be looked at, that the intersection down near Neponset Valley Parkway, where Brush Hill crosses in and where there's been sort of the rotating stop signs, I think that's another area that is going to be strongly impacted from this. You can't leave your house at Brush Hill and continue past Brush Hill and head towards 138 and, from 4 o'clock on without being stuck in traffic. And you can't really make it through that intersection without, the death grip on the steering wheel, hoping that there isn't something coming from either direction. So having an additional, 20 apartments of traffic going there, I think is just definitely something that needs to be considered. But overall, I don't know that this fits with the comments that and how they're made. But I guess my question is, as somebody when you buy a home in Milton or when you buy a home in a neighborhood, how much can you expect the neighborhood to kind of keep the same look and feel as when you bought it? How much isn't it reasonable of us all to think that if something, we understand that neighborhoods change. I mean, we live across from Curry and that's changed. And I understand that growth is to be expected, but isn't there some thought given to people having the expectations that the neighborhood that they bought into would retain that same feel, and that, that you're not going to stick in, a 2-building, 20-unit apartment complex in the middle of a residential area like this. So I've submitted my comments. I appreciate you guys taking the time and listening to all of us. As you can tell, there's pretty heated discussion around it. But I just hope that this is not a foregone conclusion, and that we can work to prevent this building from being built as it's being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we have Dwayne and Carol Day, I think. If you could...
hear me?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Wonderful. This is Carol. And what I just wanted to point out, although the Bow Road project housing development is not part of Milton, it is still very close to Milton. And here we're talking about having 2 developments within feet of each other, one on one end of Cushing Road and one on the other end of Cushing Road. This is a major, major impact. And during COVID, we've been able to see, and it's wonderful that people are able to come out, but how many people can we really take in an area? This is really increasing to the use of the area. And I'm very concerned about, and just like how the other owners have said, and what the other owners have said, we're also very concerned about the impact of it, the impact on our resources, the impact that it's going to cause on everything that's in the area, meaning our schools, our police, our fire. This really goes on and on and on. And then someone also brought up the point of there really is, because we are a residential neighborhood and we are in an area where the majority of the homes, especially on this end, are single family homes, there is no outdoor space for children. And we've had different situations go on in this neighborhood because there is no outdoor space in this neighborhood. We've already had one neighbor experience someone jumping into their pool that is a liability. And these are some of the things that really concern. And on Cushing Road, and it's not to say that these things will happen, but these things could happen. And these are all the safety concerns that as owners, we now also have to be even more concerned about. So I really hope that the board really takes a look at the impact that providing all of these big housing developments in such a small area, what it will actually do to the neighborhood and the strain that it will put on the resources.
And this is Dwayne Day, and just to piggyback on what my wife said, with Bow Road and the multitude of residents over there, now, regardless it being in Milton or not, it is in the neighborhood. We are booked in Bow Road and now this project. And the kids from Bow Road ride up and down on their bicycles. They walk right up and down Cushing Road, up Brush Hill Road. And now we will have traffic coming from the other side. And now it's impossible to walk Brush Hill Road as it is now safely. There are no sidewalks. Foot traffic is take it at your own risk, basically. And we love to walk this neighborhood. All our neighbors do. I bumped into Mrs. Serial just this evening with her son, walking the dogs. And we walk it ourselves in the mornings and in the evenings. And to add that much traffic to a neighborhood that we pay a nice piece of tax for, I think it's unfair to have someone from the outside come in, want to make some money, plop property down of that magnitude in a space less than what we have on this street. Every property owner on this street, on Cushing Road, has more square footage than that lot that they're trying to develop and put all those units on. I think it's unfair. And,
sorry, go ahead.
And then we also have Woodmere right behind us, the new development, but they had 8 acres to work with. And they are owners. These will be renters. It's something that really, really, really needs to be looked at. When you come into a neighborhood like this and you pay the amount of money that we pay for our property, the amount of taxes we pay, I think we should have say regarding something like this. Much more say than a developer coming in trying to make a couple of dollars and then we'll be gone from the neighborhood with nothing else to deal with the neighborhood at all.
And I just wanted to point out, in addition to that, we also have to, and not that, I don't want to make it, I don't know how to politely say this, so I'm just going to say it. We also have to deal with the kids from Curry College. That's not year round. Now you're impacting us with the kids from Curry College. You're impacting us with the new development, and you're impacting us with the Bow Road. So within this small area, you're in, and then you've also expressed about the parking spaces. We also have to deal with the people from Curry College parking on the street. And there's just only so much this small area can take. And now you're also talking about going further down on Brush Hill Road. We're not talking about a very large area at all. It's a real impact we're all going to feel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands raised. Just take a look. So I think I'm just taking one more moment to make sure nobody raises a hand. We're at 10 o'clock, so okay. Thank you, everyone. I do appreciate, again, everybody's patience and the spirit of everybody's comments and us all wanting to work together to get the something appropriate. And a letter crafted that's effective. So thank you. Do the board members, does anyone have a question or a comment? And I also wanted to thank Mr. Zawinski and Ms. Quinn for coming and listening real time. I mean, they're gonna, I'm sure, watch the tape, but we really value having had you here so you could hear people. Mr. Wells?
Madam Chair, just given the time and what else you have on this agenda, perhaps maybe we put aside a separate time, maybe even a quick morning meeting, just for our comments on this, on both of them? If unless all the other members, it's 10:05 now.
Right. Would people like to do that instead?
Well, Madam Chair, I have a question just relating to a site walk. I know that in terms of how we want to handle that, I know that in the prior applications, Mass Housing sponsored a sidewalk, and they're not doing that now because of COVID. So do we want to kind of each of us on our own look at the properties if we wish, or do we want to organize a site walk for the board? Just wanted to find out what your thoughts were on that.
Right. So I actually asked a question that I don't know if I got an answer to because I was in the warrant committee meeting before this, so I didn't have a chance to check my email. I actually talked with Steve Ibis, who is our conservation agent today, and he had gone and looked at both the properties. But for 936, he wasn't able to walk around the property, he said, because he couldn't get permission. And so I'm wondering, since we're not going with Mass Housing, how we set up permission. And I would think that it would be probably a good idea if the board could do something very socially distanced, but together. Or but Mr. Dennehy, did you have thoughts on that, or even if Mr. Zerwinski had thoughts on how we could do that? And
so it's news to me that Steve Ibis couldn't get on there, and I did see you speaking with him today at the Pierce Middle School about it. I think it would be best if maybe Mr. Zerwinski reached out to the developer to see if there's a time that fits, and we'll try to work it around the board schedule so that we can properly socially distance, but do the site walk. And as you said, Mr. Busby said that the Mass Housing has already taken their walk through both of these properties. So, but yeah, we can follow up with that.
Okay. And can I just ask one other question? I don't know. I know some members of the planning board also did a site walk, so I don't know if that option would still be open to them because they have some fairly specific comments. So just to mention. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I've already done it. I've already walked. I'm very familiar with both of them, so I've already walked both. Just there are some very poignant comments that were made tonight that are all absolutely true. God, not just the two, but all four of these projects.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So the other thought was, did we want to have another short meeting to make some formal comments, or we're continuing this to November 4th. So is that sufficient?
Madam Chair, I think since we're seeking an extension, and where Mr. Busby has already offered it, we could perhaps have another night where we would have some comments. I mean, generally speaking, I think the people have spoken, have raised a lot of good issues, and I have a lot of the same concerns, and I'm sure many of us, all of us do. So, we have a lot of people here at the meeting tonight who may want to listen to our discussion. So I don't think we should have a morning meeting, but if we get the extension, I think we have ample time to have another follow-up discussion on these two projects.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay. So it will be continued to the 4th, and we are going to get that extension. So we'll do that, and we may have a fairly substantially finished draft letter by then too. So we'd have that to also talk about. And then we can continue to work on the letter, so that extra month will be really useful. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to item 8, which is discussion approval, the establishment of a gift account for the Department of Veterans Services Operation Care Packs program that Kevin Cook came in to talk to us about a little while ago.
Just for the purpose of moving this along, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the establishment of gift account of Department of Veterans Services Operation Care Packs program.
Second.
Mr. Dennehy, did you?
Yeah, I just want to be clear that Kevin's here tonight to talk about the goods that so many people in our community dropped off to him at our Council on Aging a couple of Wednesdays ago. He has been waiting anxiously for this board to accept these gifts, both these gifts and gifts that came in the form of cash or checks that will actually help pay for these on their trip overseas to our troops serving so dutifully. So without further ado, Kevin, do you want to get into the specifics of what took place that day and what the next steps are?
Kevin, this is Hillary. Can you raise your hand with *9 if you're on the phone?
Hillary and Madam Chair, he is 046, last 3.
Thank you. Thank you.
There he is. He just came up. He's muted.
Right, you're still muted, Kevin. So *6. Excellent.
Okay, there I go. No,
yes.
Sorry about that.
No.
I didn't want to delay things at all, but I was having a little technical issue. Thank you, Madam Chair and Select Board, for giving me a couple minutes, and I'll be very quick about it. We had an overwhelming response to our Operation Care Packs at the end of last month. I literally filled my pickup truck to the point where I could not put anything further into it. The whole bed in the back was full. The entire back seat was full. My front seat was full. And we were able to get 58 packages together and out through generous donations. And we turned in over $1,300 to the Treasury to hold until the establishment of the fund. So with that $1,300, we were able to ship 58 packages. And I still have a number of goods that have been given that we're holding on to because we're asking for additional donations of postage. United States Postal Service charges $19.60 for the large military standard box that goes over there. So, we had an amazing donation of $1,300, and that was the first 58. I left a little bit of money in the hands of the Treasury. I didn't spend every nickel of it because, we're going to do another one coming up next week on Wednesday, the 28th, from 10 to 12 at the Council on Aging building. So I'm just hopeful that we get some more donations of postage and we see another great turnout. I know the troops appreciate what we're doing.
Yes, Mr. Dennehy.
And yeah, thank you, Kevin. This is all great. Just to be clear, so that money will be established in a gift account by the treasurer and only specifically used for Operation Care Pack. So we want to thank everyone who has donated and who will donate in the future. It's a great cause, and town treasurer will make sure that these funds go where directed.
Well, thank you so much for taking care of the troops and giving residents a chance to participate.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your time and all the support I get out of the Select Board, and mainly, as we know, the citizens of Milton who have time and again amazed me with their great support for our veterans.
Well, thank you so much, and be well, and thanks for your patience.
That's okay. Important stuff going on. Don't worry about it. We're used to being part of the team. That's what it's about. Great team.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Kevin.
Thank you, Richard.
Anytime.
Great. Thank you. Take care. So we're deferring number 9, number 10.
Madam Chair, did you want
Madam Chair, we didn't vote yet. I think.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a little tired. Thank you. Yes, let's vote. That's right. We have a second. Do we have
Yes, I
any
second it.
discussion? Okay. And all those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes. Okay. Thanks for the reminder. So we're actually deferring items 9, which is the establishment of a gift account for Parks and Rec. Item 10, Town Administrator's Public Records Officer Proposal. Item 11, which is the Town Moderator's request to hold a remote town meeting, that's being moved to the 4th of November. And item number 12, which is use of some cemetery perpetual care fund. And I believe we have Mr. Freitag.
We do, yeah, and I can open it up, Madam Chair. So if I could just go back very quickly and just talk about item number 9, which is the fund, that gift account that was asked to be set up tonight. We're going to defer that until the next meeting. It's not exclusively time sensitive. Most of that work is going to take place in the springtime, but very quickly, there was a group of Milton residents, longtime Milton residents, multitude of them that set up a GoFundMe page. And the long and short of it is some people don't use GoFundMe, and the idea was that we could set up a gift account very similar to what Mr. Cook did with Veteran Services, specifically for the street hockey infrastructure at Kelly Park. But we can talk about this at the next meeting. And then Attorney Freitag, you can speak to the cemetery issue. I can just introduce it that we've talked about this, and there was some very disheartening devastation that took place down there. So in an effort to try to mitigate the cost of it's upwards of $50,000 to $60,000 of damage that's been done down there. Anyone that's been through there has seen it. It's heartbreaking because it is one of the gems in our community. So we were actively looking for ways to fund this without necessarily tapping into our reserve fund or other funds that may be available. So Town Council was working with Lisa Ahern and some of the cemetery trustees to try to find an alternative way to support this project.
Denny, you might just want to follow up that this is from a natural tragedy, not a vandalism as a prevalent thing in cemeteries. Many people don't know what the storm did there.
2020 has introduced new words to us. This was not a microburst. Lisa Ahern tells me that it was formerly called a derecho, D-E-R-E-C-H-O, which is a new National Weather Service term for what took place in our community and specifically within our cemetery. So we are actively speaking with state and federal to see if there's some type of compensation that can take place in the form of a MEMA or a FEMA, but preliminarily there wasn't an emergency declared in our community. So we may not be successful in trying to reach some of those funds.
Mr. Freitag, hello, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep my comments very short. I did have a very good conversation with Lisa Ahern about this matter. The cemetery does have, among other funds, a cemetery perpetual care fund. There's a significant amount of money in that fund. The only question is the process by which that fund can be spent and who actually has the authority to spend out of that fund. I spent about an hour and a half on the phone today with the Department of Local Services, sort of going through the steps on the analysis. The fund's been around for at least 100 years, and it was created under some statutes that no longer exist. So we're just trying to parse that out. I suspect that I'll have an answer by midday tomorrow, and it may be that the cemetery trustees have the authority to spend from that fund, or it may be that this just needs to come back to the select board. But we wanted to make sure that we were going to the proper body that had the authority to spend the funds. So that's it.
Thank you very much.
If I can add one more comment. So the cemetery superintendent has done an unbelievable job. Her internal forces have been working morning, noon, and night to get this done, supplemented by some DPW workers and others in town lending a hand. She is in the process of soliciting some quotes from companies in this business. We're not talking about small limbs. We're talking about 50, 60-foot trees that came tumbling down. One is a willow. I mean, they're very sizable, and we're talking large equipment that the town does not own and would either have to rent or contract out. So superintendent's done a great job of soliciting bids to hire someone to do this work on behalf. It's just a matter of figuring out where the funding source comes from. Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Freitag.
Thank you, Mr. Dennehy and Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Just one quick question, Michael, on the, how are they going to handle the damage to, because this is pretty significant, the damage to like grave markers and there's a lot of them I've never seen wiped out at once.
Yeah, so that's part of the process, and that would be covered under the perpetual care fund funding. As it's my understanding that, and for those of you that have been down to the cemetery, that large willow across from the pond is actually being held up by a gravestone. It has fallen, but is feet away from the ground, and it's only being held up by a ground headstone. So they haven't been able to unearth the amount of damage that's down there. Some of the larger trees are still in place. They just kind of move them to make some of the roads accessible and cut off some of the smaller limbs. But that's part of this funding source as well.
Thank you. Okay. So item 13, approval reopening of the December 7th, 2020 special town meeting warrant to withdraw the fire station construction appropriation article. I understand that Mr. Dennehy did receive a request from Dan Clark.
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair, to withdraw the fire station construction appropriation article from the December 7th special town meeting warrant.
Okay, well.
Actually, we need to reopen first, don't we?
Yeah.
So I'll change that. I'll make a motion to. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Oh, God. I just went out of my. There it is. I'm back in it now. I'll make a motion to. Number are we on?
Just under 11 wording, Richard.
Number 11, Arthur?
Yeah, just look at the wording under 11.
Oh,
we have to open. I think we have to make a motion to open.
Right.
Reopen. Yeah.
Oh.
I'll make the motion.
Make a motion. Oh, go ahead, because
Okay.
I just got it.
Open the December 7th, 2020 town meeting warrant.
Second.
Okay. Okay, great. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Of all times to lose your screen, yes.
Of course, Mr. Zulus.
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes.
I'll move to withdraw the fire station construction appropriation article from the December 7th special town meeting warrant.
Second.
All those in favor, Ms. Conlon,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Zulus.
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes. And I do just want to make the comment that we will be having a town meeting, likely January 25th, but possibly February 1st, in order to take those articles up, and perhaps any planning board articles that they might have as well.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we close the December 7th, 2020 special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes. Okay, so 15, discussion of town meeting articles. Ms. Conlon, would you like to talk about the finance committee's recommendation, and then I can talk about the great estates.
Sure. Just in a nutshell, the Finance Committee met with the, we had a quorum of the Select Board present this morning. Ms. Collins attended the meeting along with Mr. Zulus and myself, and we met with the school committee, finance subcommittee, and school representatives, as well as Chair Asher of the Warrant Committee. And the Warrant Committee was meeting before this tonight. I caught some of their meeting, but it was continuing right when we started. So we don't know where they've come out, if they have taken a vote and made any changes. But the proposal that we came up with this morning was of the $1.3 million of additional revenue. And for those who are watching, that this is because we took a very conservative approach to the budget after COVID hit in the spring, and we made some more substantial reductions than ultimately were necessary. Our projected reduction in state aid turned out to be low, and we've had some additional new growth that the assessors have recognized. So as a result, we are seeking to return some money that we borrowed from the stabilization fund, as well as to fund some needs that are in the fire overtime line and the school department, and also to fund some additional money into the reserve fund in order to address unforeseen or extraordinary expenses during the course of the year, which may include fire department for overtime, which is something that's going to have to be managed because we have a number of firefighters who are out disabled. So the proposal is to appropriate $750,000 to the stabilization fund. As I said, we borrowed $1 million in the spring, so we would be returning 3/4 of that to the stabilization fund if town meeting were to go along with this recommendation, and if the Warrant Committee's recommended it. The school department identified some additional teaching needs that they did ask for last spring, and they've, without getting into all the detail, the school department has explained some reasoning for additional technology positions, reading and math specialists, and the proposal would be to transfer $180,000 to the school budget for those positions for half of the year. It's not all of the positions that were requested, but it is 6 positions, because there's the potential for a new employee to elect to have the town benefits, especially group health insurance. We're recommending adding $60,000 to the employee benefits group insurance line, $100,000 to the fire overtime line, and $250,000 to the reserve fund. So we're essentially recommending that town meeting distribute, or appropriate rather, $750,000 to stabilization and a total of $590,000 to departmental budgets that I just mentioned, including $250,000 to the reserve fund. Now, the Warrant Committee may have made some changes to these numbers tonight. They may have taken a different vote. We'll have to check with them and find out, because it is their recommendation that will be going to town meeting. But this is what the Finance Committee, together with the School Finance Subcommittee and the management teams, came up with this morning.
Would any members? Yes, Mr. Wells.
I just want to say thank you for your hard work, but I'm great. Well, I know the schools are very grateful. I'm sure the fire chief's grateful, but I'm really, I mentioned this the other day, I'm very happy from a financial aspect that you decided to put $750,000 back in that stabilization fund, because my greater fear, that's 3/4 of what we borrowed. My greater fear, as Katie mentions, is who knows what 2022 is going to represent. And I would not want to have to go back to that again without put back a substantial amount of what we've already borrowed. So thank you for that, and both of you, and your work on that.
Thank you.
I'll say a prayer that the Warrant Committee voted to support your recommendations. I actually just flipped my TV to see that, but they weren't on tonight. It's a school committee and us. They're not on. No.
Okay, so I don't know if it was clear, but since I also attended the meeting, we took a vote of the select board to recommend that to the Warrant Committee, but it would be good to know that we have everybody's blessing. Mr. Wells, you just said thank you, and you agreed with the $750,000, but I just wanted to make that clear.
I'll vote yes.
Okay.
I'll vote yes.
Okay.
I tried to get in. I tried for half an hour to get that meeting this morning.
Oh.
Zoom wasn't liking me. Oh, Hillary knew. I just wouldn't let me in. I tried and tried. It just wouldn't let me in.
Well, if that happens again, maybe we can get you in
I think
another way, because it would.
I think it's a Comcast. We're having a little Comcast issue over in East Milton. Yeah, and that's.
Oh, I am too. That's why I'm here in town hall. So, and Mr. Doyle, would you like to?
Affirmative.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So the last one is to amend the zoning bylaws, section 3, subsection Q, the Great Estates bylaw. I actually spoke with and then received a subsequent email, Mr. Dennehy and I, from April Anderson, who is the planning board chair, that the planning board will not be approving and submitting an article for this, for the warrant. And if it's remembered how we structured our vote was contingent upon them approving the zoning that was proposed without substantial alteration. So that they're going to continue to work on this, and it won't go into the warrant. Okay, next up, and I'm a little behind here, sorry, on my paperwork. Next, we have a proclamation honoring Jean Powers, and I just wanted to read it out loud because she's a very special part of our community, and I know the board really treasures all the work that she's done and the influence she's had on all of us. So this is a proclamation that was brought to us by the Shade Tree Advisory Committee, and it reads, whereas Jean Powers is a longtime resident of Fuller Village who's given many years of service to the town of Milton, and whereas Jean Powers served on the Warrant Committee for 4 years, worked to promote the Community Preservation Act, was a town meeting member for many years, and more recently was a member of the Shade Tree Advisory Committee for 5 years, and whereas Jean Powers worked to protect the tree canopy in the town and connect the Shade Tree Advisory Committee to the Wakefield estate in order to earn the Tree City USA designation for the town of Milton with Arbor Day events at the estate, and whereas Jean Powers was a charter member of the Shade Tree Advisory Committee, whose common sense, prior experience with town hall, and institutional knowledge helped the committee determine how it would function and how to be effective. Her strong opinions helped the committee stay on task. Additionally, Jean hosted the Shade Tree Advisory meetings each month by making arrangements with Fuller Village to meet there. And whereas Jean Powers' lifelong commitment to and involvement in the town of Milton is an inspiration to all town citizens, now therefore we, the Select Board, urge all citizens of the town of Milton to join us in recognizing Jean Powers on the occasion of her retirement from the Shade Tree Advisory Committee and in wishing her continued years of good health and happiness.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve and sign the proclamation honoring Jean Powers on the occasion of her retirement from the Shade Tree Advisory Committee.
Second.
All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Absolutely. Great lady. Good friends with my mother. Great woman.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we're to item 17, update, discussion, approval of the FAA response to technical questions and follow-up board action. So, Mr. Zulus, I believe that we sent around a letter earlier today. Would you like to address this for us?
On September 24th, the FAA held a session for elected officials on the 4L environmental assessment. At that time, they solicited technical questions. They said we could submit technical questions thereafter. This board, along with Representative Driscoll, and along with Congressman Lynch and Senator Timilty acting jointly, submitted technical questions. In all three of those efforts, our board, Congressman Lynch and Senator Timilty, and Representative Driscoll received the same response. Our letter was dated October 7th, and the response was the questions would be addressed at the public workshops. That they wouldn't put it in writing; they would just address it at the public workshops. Representative Driscoll has responded to that, and Congressman Lynch and Senator Timothy have responded jointly to that response from the FAA. And what you have before you is similar, very similar to what those responses to the FAA were. And the operative portion to that is the second line, which is that response is at best woefully inadequate, and at worst an affront to the offices that we hold. It goes on to repeat additional requests, and because the first workshop is tomorrow, and then the second workshop is next week, we are seeking the written responses that we sought on October 7th, and that we seeking those by October 23rd, which would be, actually, I may have gotten the wrong date.
It's Friday.
Friday. Yeah, Friday. That's right, Friday. So I think we need to put them on a short leash here. Presumably they have the answers if they're going to address it at the public hearing tomorrow, so they could put it in writing and give it to us. So that's the draft. That's the context.
Excellent. Thank you.
So I'll move to approve and sign the response letter to the FAA with respect to technical questions on the 4L environmental assessment.
Second.
All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells? It's not there. Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes. While we're waiting for Mr. Wells, may I ask a follow-up question? Do you think that there's a reason to authorize someone on the board to make any further communications to see if we can get answers between one workshop and another, or something like that, if we're not able to meet?
Yeah, it's true that this letter is not as timely because we haven't met since October 7th, and we received a response, I believe, on October 8th or October 9th. So if the board wants to authorize one or two of us to do a follow-up in these matters, that might make things a little more timely.
Okay. Well,
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, let's hold that thought. Mr. Wells, we voted on the letter, and
Yes.
you're
I'm voting yes. Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. Okay, Ms. Conlon, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Well, I'll move that we designate or delegate Mr. Zulus as a member of the board to handle any follow-up communications relating to this matter with the FAA.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
I'll abstain.
Ms.
I'll make sure to be diplomatic.
Ms. Collins, yes. Well, thank you for agreeing to do that. I was cognizant of the fact that we might have the ability to get something else answered if we have a person to do that. 18, reappointment of Thomas Doherty to the Massachusetts Port Authority Community Advisory Committee.
I'll make a motion. Oh, go ahead, Mike. You want to do it? Go ahead. You can.
No, you can go.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Thomas Doherty of 247 Adams Street to the Massachusetts Port Authority Community Advisory Committee with a term expiring October 31st, 2021.
Second.
All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes, and we thank you for all of your work, Mr. Doherty. Next, 19, appointment of Arthur Doyle as the Master Plan Implementation Committee representative to the Housing Committee.
I'll make a motion to appoint Arthur Doyle as the Master Plan Implementation Committee representative to the Housing Committee with a term expiring October 31st, 2021. Sorry, Mr. Zulus. I can see
All
your
right.
face. It's 10:35.
No. It's
Second. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Abstain.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Zulus,
yes.
Ms. Collins, yes, and just in time, we have a meeting Tuesday. Let's see, appointment, Melinda Collins to the Policy Committee with a term expiring October 31st, 2021.
I'll make the motion to appoint Melinda Collins to the Policy Committee with a term expiring October 31st, 2021.
Second.
All those in favor, Ms. Conlon,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Zulus,
Yes.
Ms. Collins abstain. Thank you. Next, appointment of Katie Conlon to the Finance Committee. I'll make the motion to appoint Katie Conlon to the Finance Committee with a term expiring October 31st, 2021.
Second.
All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
I guess I'll abstain and follow the tradition here.
All right. Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Ms. Collins, yes. Approval of meeting minutes. I understand that we are not ready to approve the October 7th meeting minutes yet. They still have some work needing to be done.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 18th and September 23rd as written.
All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Collins, yes. Okay, excellent. Future meeting dates. So we have a site walk on
Saturday.
The 23rd. The 24th at 10 a.m. and that's at 175 Lyman Road. That's the paper road that we're looking at. So that's that one. And then our next regular meeting is on the 4th, and then the one after that is on the 18th. And we are trying to put together some sort of site walk for those of us who still need to see 16 Amore Road and 936 Brush Hill. But I think Mr. Dennehy will be able to put that together and poll us. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And now we're on to the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I will try to be brief. Obviously, a lot going on in town. The Granite Ave Drawbridge construction project is set to take place this weekend. So late Friday night through Monday morning, October 26th. So it's going to start Friday the 23rd and run through the morning of the 26th. Long and short is all traffic will be detoured to Adams Street in both directions over the course of the weekend's construction. We understand it's a huge convenience. I'm sure Mr. Wells can let us know how important that drawbridge is to be repaired. There is signage that's been installed. It'll be unveiled Friday night when the detour begins. Milton Police has been notified and will be patrolling the area accordingly. But Mr. Wells, I'm sure that bridge is in need of desperate repair, and we'll see how important that bridge is to our commute each and every day by the backups we see over the weekend. So.
Oh, you'll see them. Well, actually, COVID may help that, so that is actually kind of a good thing for this.
Okay. Yeah, we do appreciate them scheduling it on a weekend, but we could see some more traffic on Adams Street, and then if Adams Street gets backed up, people usually try the cut-through stuff. But Milton Police is aware and will be patrolling. I know Caroline mentioned the flu clinic tomorrow. I'll just hit it one more time. Flu clinic tomorrow. Health Department and Board of Health are hosting their fall flu clinic tomorrow. Council on Aging from 3 to 7, and asking that only seniors use that first hour from 3 to 4. I appreciate that. Kevin Cook, who is on tonight, who's been doing great work, has finalized the Veterans Day ceremony, which will take place on the 11th of November. And we will post that press release tomorrow on the town's website. I would be remiss if I did not notice the town clerk and the work that's being done by her crew. So for those of you that have stopped in during the first 5 days at Town Hall, we appreciate it. Over 1,500 ballots have been cast in early voting. Additionally, thousands of ballots have been received by vote by mail. So a very, very busy time for the clerk's office. I have been polling people as they come out the west door, and by all accounts, the clerk is running a top-notch operation, very socially distanced, very safe, and everyone has the ability from now through October 30th to take advantage of early voting at Town Hall. If you have any questions, you can call 617-898-4857. But special thanks to the clerk, all our volunteers and staffers, and all the residents that are exercising their democratic right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dennehy. So under Chair's report, I don't really have a report. I did want to note that it was announced recently at the school committee meeting that Glenn Pavlicek, who's the Assistant Superintendent for Business for our public schools, is going to be retiring at the end of December. So as he said, we get him for one more town meeting. And I just wanted to offer a moment for our members to say any words of thanks. I know we'll all miss him. He's such a huge asset, and also just a wonderful person to know. So that's doubly sad to see him go, but well deserved. Would anyone like to say something? Ms. Conlon?
I would. I'm glad you brought it up, Madam Chair, because under the members' reports, I took a few notes, and I just would ask an indulgence for a moment, because Glenn Pavlicek was one of my mentors in town government, and I think it's important that we note the different capacities in which he has served over the past 2 decades. Not only has he been the assistant superintendent since 2013, but Glenn was also a former school committee member and chair for a number of years, a member of the school building committee, the chair of the warrant committee for 2.5 years. And during that time, he really stepped into a void when a former town accountant left to take another position in another community, and that created a vacancy in the middle of budget season. And that this is back in the day when the warrant committee chair was doing a lot of the revenue projections and playing a little bit of a different role than what the warrant committee has evolved into currently. In terms of just the amount of time and effort that went into putting the town budget together. So Glenn really took the so-called spreadsheet to a new level, and greatly served the town during that time. He also has served as a member of the master plan committee. He's been a town meeting member, but as someone who has a lot of knowledge about the town budget, as not many people can do well. He can explain complex topics in a very understandable way, and always approaches things with a great sense of humor and a calm, collective manner. So when I eventually succeeded him after Emily Keyes-Innes served for a few years as chair of the warrant committee, and I landed in that role, I had him on speed dial. He was one of the mentors, and even on issues like Chapter 90, which was not a school issue, I was calling Glenn for advice on those issues. I think one of the best decisions that Glenn made for the town was hiring Carol Blute, the late Carol Blute, to be the warrant committee clerk back in the early 2000s, because she had just retired as the assistant town administrator. And Glenn was smart enough to know that she knew a lot of the answers, the questions that were going to be coming before the warrant committee, and he persuaded her to become the warrant committee clerk. And I know many of us knew Carol, and the conference room in the basement of Town Hall is named after her, and her service with the warrant committee really was thanks to Glenn Pavlicek. So I wish Glenn well in his retirement. I know that his wife, Anita Penta, and the entire Pavlicek family, I'm sure, will be happy to have him back. More of his time, less time with the school department, and more time in retirement. So I wish them all well. I am so grateful that I've had Glenn as a mentor during my early years as a volunteer in town government, and I learned an awful lot from him. Sad to see him go, but happy for him and for Anita, and I wish them well.
Thank you so much. That a lot of things I didn't know, and I really appreciate it. Mr. Wells?
I can go. Go ahead, Michael. You waiting to go? I can go last. I thought Mr. Zulus had his hand up first. If not, I'll go last.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I wish I weren't so tired and I could articulate what I want to better. But Glenn started as assistant superintendent for business when I started on the school committee, and so I appreciate the opportunity to work with him on the school committee. I've appreciated the opportunity to the extent that we've had things that we've worked on finance in the last 2 years here. And as Katie said, Glenn is a wealth of knowledge, and he's certainly going to be missed in those roles from the town.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair. Thank you. I just want to, my colleagues have touched on his community role, but I'm very privileged to call him my friend. We became friends in the most unique of situations. And the thing that has drawn us together on a personal front in the past 8 years is the Milton Music Festival. Anyone who knows Glenn knows that music of all types, he travels this country to music festivals to see music from the Bayou to Vermont to Canada. God knows where he's going. But he's a fascinating man. I'll just tell one quick story about how I first met him when he was running. He was leaving the warrant committee and he's running for school committee. And Father Bill's in Quincy had a fundraiser that was being held at the Beachcomber. And if any of you have ever been at the Beachcomber, it was famous for its music, but it got an F in character. I mean, it was the last place in the world I would ever expect to see Glenn Pell. But this was a Milton night. Milton was running fundraiser for Father Bill's. And I can't remember for the life of me. I know Linda Lee Sharon's Washington. It couldn't even have been her. Glenn was campaigning and brought him in. It was the first time I ever actually talked to him outside of the warrant committee. And I looked at him and I said, dude, if y'all want to come into this Beachcomber on this night looking for me to vote for you, you've got my vote, and we've been friends ever since. But we've shared a lot, and Glenn, I just wish you the best, and I hope that, I know our festival was canceled this year, but we will share a Guinness together again sometime very soon. So thank you again. Thank you, Madam Chair, for that.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. I think we're ready to move on. Okay, thank you again, and I'm glad we do have Mr. Pavlicek for a little longer. I'm sure we'll all want to say another goodbye, hopefully more directly, even if socially distanced. So, do any members have reports of other kinds they'd like to share? Okay. Oh, Mr. Doyle?
I'll just add that last night the Master Plan Implementation Committee met, and one of the outcomes was a request to meet with the Select Board. I could go over what we covered last night, but in the interest of time, I think we'll cover it in that meeting, if that's all right with you, Madam Chair.
Oh, yes, thank you. And I did put it on the future agenda items. So we just need to confirm that which meeting would work for both Ms. Jagaias and Ms. Quinn. If the 4th works, then that would be wonderful. But if they need another date, then we could do that too. See, so future agenda items, I think that those have been accumulating. Does anyone have something we didn't discuss already this evening? No? Okay, good. So at this point, I propose to enter executive session pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection A, Subsection 3, sometimes known as Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, believing that having such a discussion in open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the board, specifically the Milton Fire Department Collective Bargaining Agreement Memorandum of Understanding for July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon? Not to return to open session. I'm sorry, it didn't say that, and I need to think of that. So not to return to open session. Would you mind seconding me again?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zulus?
Yes.
Ms. Collins? Yes. And I think that's it.